This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Many, Mickey, Pishy.
You are listening to the Voices of Wrestling podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
X out and go listen to some boring podcast where they're afraid of their own shadow. Okay? Don't listen to Joe Lanza, because Joe Lanza's not changing.
And Rich Craich.
Give me a name.
Like
Who delivers this guy in a big spot?
Joe, don't yell at me. I like him.
In the big spot, who delivers better than this guy?
Stop yelling at me. I agree.
All right, welcome once again to the Voices of Wrestling Flagship podcast. I'm Rich Craich, alongside, as always, the King of Banter, a very good family man, Mr. Joe Lanza. Joe, what's happening?
Wait a minute, come on. We've been talking for 45 minutes.
I know. It's been quite a while. Hi, Joe. How is your night going?
Jeez, what's happening?
What's new, Joe?
I can't possibly. It's so inorganic. I mean, we've been talking for 45 minutes before you slap record. I'm not repeating. I said hello to you 45 minutes ago. You know.
How are the college basketball games tonight, Joe? That's fine, because you know what? I wanted to get right down to business anyway. Last week on the show, you had mentioned that the TLB had brought two even worse, even more horrendous signs into your household, including one that you advertised to me was the worst thing she has ever brought in your house yet. Because we had laughed, there was the Live, Laugh, Love, there was a few just pretty terrible like Christmas decorations or whatnot. And I thought you were being facetious. I thought you were exaggerating. I thought you were lying when you said, no, this thing that she brought in is the worst thing I've ever seen. Joe, I had to bring it up. I'm sorry, but you got to stage an intervention or something. Something has to be done about this.
I'm staring at it right now. It's hanging up in the room.
So for people that can't see, I guess it's up to you if we want to share this picture to the world later. It's totally up to you. But you can probably find this. I'm sure it's just some like thing that if you search up on Amazon or whatever, it'll probably come up. But what essentially it is, it's a hanging sign with 4 different boards. They appear to be wood, some faux wood possibly. So it's a hanging sign with 4 boards of wood. And the first board says, "You're braver than you believe." The second board says, "And stronger than you seem." And the third board says, "And smarter than you think." And the fourth board says, "Loved more than you know."
Yes.
You gotta stop this, Joe.
I'm staring right at it.
This has gone too far. This has gone too far. She's a lovely woman. You gotta stop this, though.
It's a great inspirational message. So I made fun of this, and I sent pictures of it into the old office Slack, and I think I posted it into the Patreon channel of the Discord. So if you pay $5 a month, you can see what this bad boy looks like.
Nice little sell.
But then TLB saw it on my phone.
Caught.
And she's like, "Wait, is that the thing on the wall?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I make fun of you all the time. I take pictures of the dumb things you have all over the house on the wall. Like the one right behind me, as a matter of fact, and I think I've showed you this one. This one says, "May your journey always lead you home," is what this one says behind me. But I say, I always take pictures of these dumb things, and the other guys take pictures of the dumb things that their wives have hanging up all over the place. And we basically just laugh at you. We laugh at you guys. And you're going to be sorry that you decided to do this bit, because then she said, "Oh, well, that one," and she's talking about the one that you're referencing with the 4 pieces of wood there with the 4.
Am I going to feel bad here in a minute?
You're going to feel horrendous.
Oh, no. Oh, God.
You know where she got this?
Oh, no.
For donating to a children's cancer charity.
Oh, I feel horrible. Okay.
And you didn't tell me you were doing this bit.
Oh, Jesus.
A children's cancer charity. And
I feel
this
horrendous.
was like the gift for donating to the charity.
Oh.
So I was like, you know what? I mean, and then when you read read it again, it makes sense, right?
Braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think. And yeah. Definitely is something can be attributed to a dying child. All right.
Boy, that went backwards.
Yeah, it really did. Okay.
That went a little sideways.
It did. Wow. Good Lord.
You should have picked the laundry one.
I was about to, Joe. It's funny you should mention it. The other one I have on my screen right now, and I was gonna dunk on this one too. This one, I hope this one's just bought. Like this was just bought on Amazon or something, right?
This is a tchotchke, purchase somewhere. Yeah,
okay, absolutely. It's there's some bubbles and then a basket, and it says "Life is like laundry." ... Loads of fun.
Yes.
So that one wasn't a cancer donation, right? Or that was just.
Yeah, they're just. It's just awful. That one
that
had no.
Pretty bad too.
Life is like laundry. Loads of fun. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's good
also
outlook,
false.
I guess.
Nobody likes laundry. No, get out of here.
No one likes laundry. Laundry is universally hated. But yeah, that adorns the laundry room in the house. That one that I posted there. You know, you haven't seen a fraction of them. I've only probably shown you.
Where did these come from?
I don't even know where you would acquire
like
these.
Every day there's like 3 others, right? Like there's so many. I can't believe how many there are. Like where are they? Do they go to storage? Does she throw them out when she's done with them? Like what's like? How do you not know? Because like you always say like you just like walk in and the new one appears. Like where did it come from? How did it get there? Where did the old one go? A lot of questions.
I don't ask those questions. I mean, they just appear. Some of them are seasonal. We've got like this one gimmick in the living room. It's a little like decorative blackboard, and she writes a different chalk message on it depending on the time of year it is. Like the one here says, Happy New Year 2020 with like some artwork designs that she did. I guess that one's got to change soon, right? It's like the 16th.
Yeah, we're getting a little long in the tooth there. The problem is like, what do you do from? I guess you can go Valentine's Day, but it seems a little early for that. This is the problem with late January. It's just kind of this in between period where.
I mean, I think we're going to go I think she's going to go Valentine's Day. You do the hearts with the little arrows through them and stuff, you know. Yeah, it's going to go Valentine's Day.
And work away on St. Patrick's Day, Easter,
right on through
Mother's Day,
all of them.
Then you get a summer one or a spring one. You get a spring one. That's pretty good, pretty easy.
Yeah, I remember last year. I think one of them just said summer with like a sun.
Well, hey.
Yeah, like that kind of deal. Yeah. Hold on, let me snap a pic here. Hold on, I'll get you for it. I'll text it right over.
This is the worst bit. I feel horrendous about this bit now.
This is the kind of stuff that never adorned my home until. Because, I mean, I told you, look, this was like a serial killer's lair.
Blank walls, empty rooms.
Blank walls, empty rooms. Right. Oh, that's a blurry picture. Hold on, let me try it.
Don't get schlock over me. Yeah, come on.
There's other, like, decorative things around this, too. There's like a... All right, here we go. This is the best I'm going to... All right, I sent that off to you.
Now, were any of these for, like, you know, an animal care lead? Like, I don't want to make fun of anything else now. I feel
I can't
my
make any
guard's been
promises.
broken down. I feel terrible about making fun of any of these anymore. It's like, you know, oh, that's what I got for, you know, donating $1,000 to the, you know.
Right. Yeah. So but she saw it on my phone and told me that, and I was like, wow.
Happy New Year. That's nice. Oh, nice little birdhouse right there too.
Yeah, you see the Happy New Year gimmick?
Yeah,
like
that's
all.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all chalk art, you know. She does a little, so I don't know. I just is what it is, man.
You got to live with it. You got to live with it. It's part of the game.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's how they decorate. I don't know. What do you want from me? It's for a kids' cancer charity.
Yeah, that's terrible. That I feel horrendous. Oh my god.
And we're burying it over here. But you know, the worst thing now though is like. You go to a museum or you go to like an exhibit or you go to like an aquarium and you know what the new grift is. When you walk in, they tell you, oh, everybody get together. Let's take a picture, right? And they take this picture of you when you get in the place. And then when you're leaving the place, they try to sell you the picture.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been hit off?
Oh, of course. Yeah, all the time.
I mean, that's like the worst grift. But see, TLB buys the pictures.
Oh, see, I was going to say, like, I luckily, like, no, we never buy those pictures. Like, Michelle's just like, no, I'm not going to fucking buy that terrible picture of this idiot, like, that took it. But I get, like, the kid factor probably plays a big thing in that, where you're in there with the 2 kids, and it's like, every moment must be cherished. Every moment must be remembered forever. So, yeah, you're not going to walk out of, you know, the aquarium without a picture of you four enjoying, all the nice fish and sharks and whatnot. So,
you've got a text, sir.
Another one. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it you in the aquarium
There it
or
is.
something?
There it is. Yeah. It's the aquarium picture that we got hustled for probably $49 or whatever.
It's a good picture, though. That's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking. Everyone's good. There's dolphins in the background.
Look at zoom in on the forced smile on the girl. It's hilarious.
Okay, is that a
she
forced
knows
smile?
it's a grift.
Yeah, she knows she's getting
It's a
had.
forced smile.
Yeah, she's like, how much is this picture going to be? $18? Get out of here. That's ridiculous.
She's 3 and she knows it's a grift. She knows. You can tell by the forced smile, But
that's a good picture. No, I like that picture. So
those are like all over the house too. So
that frame's a disaster, but that's all right. Yeah, the picture's fine. The frame's a disaster, but
I can't. Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, you know what?
There you go.
You win some. You stay up until all hours of the night watching Pro Wrestling Noah. She buys aquarium photos. It's it is what it is.
Visit to the aquarium. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's the famous "You Had Me at Merlot" shirt too. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh dear God.
Oh, you're crying over there. Yep.
Oh God.
Hey, listen, this was your bit.
Oh God! It turned around. It was bad, and then it got good. Now it's just fantastic, or it's terrible because it's just me giggling to myself.
Yeah. Now you've got. Forget it. You've got the laughs now, and you can't jiggle.
Stop, yeah, and now because I'm laughing and making noise, like my one dog keeps trying to climb on me, like, oh, what's wrong? Like you're not feeling well. You're crying.
Yeah,
I'm not. Oh Jesus. I was gonna say. that the
different
of all the museums, where would you rank the aquarium on like the in the museum, planetarium, art museum? Like where does an aquarium rank in the Joe Lanza rank? Because I rank aquariums very highly.
Oh, I love a good aquarium. Yeah, I'm into the fish.
Okay,
yeah,
because like in Chicago we have like our aquarium is like elite. It's a great aquarium, and like our museums are fine. Like people like them a lot, but I will never ever pass up an opportunity to go to the aquarium, and the line to get into our aquarium is always like 5 hours long. It's ridiculous. You got to buy tickets way ahead of time and all that sort of shit to get in because everybody knows that the aquarium is the elite one. So I was just curious if you also agreed with that as well. So
no, aquariums are the best. Yeah, they're fantastic. Big fan of the fish.
Hey, you get nice.
It's not always fish.
Yeah. You got sharks in there. You got some otters will show up every so often. You got the dolphins. There's a lot of good stuff that can come in.
Seals.
Yeah, some good old seals. Everything's like well lit too.
Alligators.
There's good lighting. There's exotic creatures from all across. Yeah, whereas like, because like, are you more of an aquarium guy or a zoo guy? Because I feel like you can't be both.
I like them both.
Okay, you do like them both.
I like them both. I mean, the zoo depends on the time of year too. The worst is going to the zoo and they're like, "Oh, we're sorry, but the cheetahs don't come out in November. We got them."
The aardvark.
That's some bullshit.
It's too cold for the aardvark, so yeah, sorry. Right. Bullshit. What do you want them to do? Fucking tase them till they go out there? Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, like I came here to see some fucking cheetahs. You know what I mean? Now you're telling me I can't see the cheetahs. But you never really run into that problem with an aquarium, because it's all temperature controlled water and whatnot. So sometimes you do get screwed at the zoo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but they're fantastic. Anything with the animals is good. I like any kind of museum. You really can't go wrong with a museum.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like Art Institute we have the Art Institute in Chicago. It's like an art museum. It's fine. That one I could probably put pretty low on the rankings, and most like kind of natural museums or history museums or whatever all depend on like how much effort is being put into it. I like a good history museum, but sometimes like the main one we have in Chicago, they haven't updated in like years, so it's like I've seen the same shit. It's like, oh, it's King Tut's tomb, and I'm like, I saw this when I was 8. Like, let's move it on here, guys. Like, we're done with the Egypt thing. Let's move on to a different thing here. Let's move on to a different exhibit, possibly. But yeah, so that kind of
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. I had to blow through the "You Had Me at Merlot" shirts thing, and I think I have. So we're good. I think we can move on to the next chapter of this saga, whatever the hell this is here. On this is a late night recording too, so things can get a little wild here. But we got a ton to talk about here. A ton to talk about. We have Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill pay-per-view. We're going to talk about that, review that. NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2. Of course, we're not going to forget about that. Noah had a big show on the January 4th, January 5th. We're going to talk about those shows as well. Evolve is running this weekend, Joe, and we have you've told me a little game to play. I know nothing about this game. I know nothing about the Evolve show, so I'm very curious what this is all about. AEW has a new TV deal. We're going to do a little check-in with WrestleMania weekend and see if it's been saved yet from the garbage wrestling. Marty Scurll has a new ROH deal, and unfortunately, we have to start with this news. Just an unbelievable rash of pro wrestling deaths that has happened so far. Like you had mentioned on our office Slack that the Cauliflower Alley Club Twitter account, I had to unfollow it because it was just literally like you scrolled and the last, 25 tweets, like 18 of them were like about guys that had died in the last few weeks. It was unbelievable.
There were 9 wrestling deaths in the first 15 days of 2020. So that's just crazy. That's more than, one death every other day. So, today's the 16th, I guess. Nobody died today.
Yeah,
so,
we still have a few hours, I guess. But, unfortunately, the big ones we want to talk about, I think maybe we'll break these down into little mini segments, even though I don't think we have a ton to talk about with a bunch of these guys. But I know earlier in the week, one of the big ones out of Japan was Kendo Nagasaki, his passing away. And I don't have any strong or any real big takes. I mean, I know the guy, I know the photos, I know I've seen a few matches, but I can't really talk, with much, expertise about Kendo Nagasaki. Can you either?
This is the American version of Kendo Nagasaki. It should be pointed out too, not the the British version. Of Kendo Nagasaki. Right. Although they were, they were both stars, but before my time too.
Rocky Johnson was another one that just came down yesterday, and that was big news around the wrestling world because, not necessarily because, and unfortunately maybe not necessarily because of Rocky Johnson, but because, of course, being The Rock's dad, that's a pretty big thing. But people remember him. He's a well-known figure. He's been in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's been on TV a lot in WWE, and they've always kind of talked about him largely because, again, like The Rock became, the biggest wrestling star, and now he's, Hollywood's biggest star. So anytime, his father passes away or whatever, that's big news. But for like straight pro wrestling fans or people that listen to the show or whatnot, he's kind of before you and I, both of our times. Like I've seen a fair amount of his stuff, but I, again, can't really speak to a ton of expertise about him. I would say I would definitely recommend this morning's, we're recording this on the 16th, as we said, this morning's Wrestling Observer Radio, with Dave and Brian. Dave goes into like 35 minutes of Rocky Johnson's entire career, which is super fascinating. Stuff that I never knew, just right off the top of his head, telling you where he went to, what he did. He's in here, he's in Memphis, he's in Hawaii, he's doing this, all this sort of, like, he did a fantastic job. He will do a far better job that you and I could ever possibly do about Rocky Johnson. So if you want to, go back and listen to this morning's Wrestling Observer Radio, WrestlingObserver.com, F4WOnline.com if you want to listen to those. But did you have any Rocky Johnson sort of memories or anything that you wanted to talk about with Rocky Johnson? Or he was really before your time as well.
A little bit before my time. The tag team with Tony Atlas was 83. I was way too young to be watching wrestling in 1983. His last real full year in WWF was 84. My first memories really of wrestling are around 85, and he was kind of being cycled out by then. And really that was his last run in all of wrestling, was really that 84 run, the 84 year with WWF. So my only exposure to Rocky Johnson was renting and watching VHS tapes in the mid to late 80s, with stuff from 83 and 84. It wasn't watching him in real time. But I do remember watching a bunch of those tag matches with Tony Atlas, from around 1983 or so. But yeah, that's really my only frame of reference of Rocky Johnson.
Yeah, I'm pretty low on Rocky Johnson expertise. Well, I mean, the most that I really remember of him was, again, unfortunately, because of The Rock, and I remember WrestleMania 13. I went to that show in Chicago, and yeah, that was one where Rocky Johnson appeared and he helped his son defeat the Sultan or whatever, and that's like I knew about him because they at that time would show clips. Hey, there's Rocky Johnson, and there's Peter Maivia, and here's his the third generation superstar Rocky Maivia, and that's like pretty much all I knew about Rocky Johnson at that point. Is they would show clips, they would talk about how he's the father of The Rock, and that was it. Like that's as far as I really knew. I've went back and I've watched some stuff here and there, but yeah, again, like it's not an era that I really seek out all that much, and it's an era that's I not that easy to seek out either. That early '80s WWF stuff, and it's like a style that I don't really love either. Even though he was of what I've seen is like he's a pretty fun worker. I would really like to go back and depending on how much of his stuff is available, he seems like a guy who at some points was a little ahead of his time, but also when you say ahead of your time and you talk about a guy in the mid '70s or early '80s WWF, like doing a head scissors was like, whoa, holy shit, like look at that guy, like that strong guy's doing a head scissors, but he was still a brick shithouse. He was still a giant dude. He could just throw drop kicks and do head scissors, and at that time and that's no slight against him. That was a big deal in that era, especially in those territories and in those certain companies. So it's like, but again, it's not a style that like I've really sought out. It's not an era that I've really sought out as well. And then a lot of his other stuff is, 70s California and Hawaii territory stuff. And it's like, yeah, that stuff's just not that easy to find. And it's not something you're just going to kind of bump into and say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to watch, all the old Olympic Auditorium shows from LA in 1972. It's like, it's not something that really, is top of mind or really is available to a lot of people out there either. So it is tough to kind of be an expert on Rocky Johnson unless you kind of grew up in that era, or grew up where, in the territories where he was big in.
I mean, he wrestled everywhere. I mean, Florida, Portland, the St. Louis. He pretty much made his way through every major territory for the most part. Even some Memphis. But yeah, you're right. A lot of his stuff was in territories where the footage isn't super readily available. That just happens with some guys. And it just, it's just love. But the early 80s WWF stuff, I mean, that's out there. I mean, he's on the network quite a few times, I think. I mean, I don't think there's like dozens and dozens of matches, but, if you wanted to find some Rocky Johnson on the network, you could, I know that you could. I know for sure I've seen at least a couple of Rocky Johnson matches on the network. So, and he's the kind of guy that the network might do something for. Right. I wouldn't be surprised at all. If there's a Rocky Johnson collection at some point, later this week or early next week, with some of those tag bouts with Tony Atlas and he worked a ton of MSG shows, and there's footage of Rocky Johnson that they, without question, have access to just within their own library, let alone whatever else they own from elsewhere that they can throw in there too. But he's definitely the kind of guy I could see, just with the Rock connection alone, where they would maybe put something up in the coming days.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking right now. If you do a search of Rocky Johnson on their horrendous search function, you have to filter through a lot of Rock matches, but you can get to it eventually, and a lot of it is because like Rocky Johnson came down to the ring with, The Rock. So there's a lot of that in there. But there's quite a few. If you scroll and look at matches, I think there's 31 matches total, but I don't know. Yeah, not all of these are him, but there's a pretty good amount. That I'd say about 20 of these are either singles matches with him or tag matches with him. And there's one of him and Andre the Giant versus Don Morocco and Big John Studd. There's Rocky Johnson and Pedro Morales versus Ivan Koloff and Mr. Saito. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, there's some single matches here. There's Rocky Johnson, Volkov, Rocky Johnson, David Schultz, Black Demon, and Rocky Johnson is on there too. So yeah, anything that took place, it looks like Philly, Madison Square Garden. So there's a few, but like you said, they're probably sitting on a lot too. That I'm sure someone got a memo. Hey, whatever you have Rocky Johnson wise that's digitized, let's throw it up there. Let's get a collection going. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do for him. And he's a guy I'd like to watch a little bit more of. Just because it's nobody I've really sought out. So it's maybe a good weekend to kind of watch those matches. I mean, they're not going to be long matches. There's not going to be a whole lot in there, but it'd be good to, familiarize myself a little bit with his career.
I mean, there's, between the MSG and Philly shows that you're talking about, which are always filmed, then the Allentown tapings that, they still, have access to. And He was a tag team champion multiple times. There's title matches that he held the. Well, I guess he only held the WWF titles with Tony Atlas once. Now that I think about it, and that was either 83 or 84, or ran from 83 to 84. But yeah, they definitely had a match against the Wild Samoans that I 1,000,000% have seen, multiple times. There's just a ton. He worked those Allentown tapings, I'm sure, for years and years, and all of that stuff's on tape. So just with their own footage alone, they could put something together. So we'll see if they do it.
Yeah, and as far as he was on the Wrestling Observer ballot twice. So he first came on in 2008. He fell off in 2009. He got back on in 2015. And as of last year, he's still on the ballot, actually. This year, he was still on the ballot, but only got 23% in the historical U.S. and Canada region. So, yeah, he's a guy that, and I think when we have talked about that region as well, he's a guy that I don't think anybody really goes out of their way to. A good wrestler, a good guy for his era. But yeah, it feels like most people that even lived through the era would probably not put him in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. He's in the WWE Hall of Fame, but we know what the score is with that. So
yeah, they won the titles from the Wild Samoans in Allentown, and that's a match that was on, I think, multiple early Coliseum video releases. I've seen that match like a bunch of times when I was a kid. And then they held the titles, I'm looking it up now, through early 84. So you're talking into the early Hulkamania era, because they defended against people like Orndorff and Piper, on house shows, and a lot of matches with the Wild Samoans. And then he stuck around, we were talking about off air, into early 85, but he wasn't pushed. By that point, he was like a prelim guy working singles matches early on house shows. And he lasted into the summer, but obviously he wasn't at WrestleMania. They didn't put him on the WrestleMania 1 show. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was bouncing between WWF and other territories in 85 also. Mm-hmm. Which is why they were just using him as a prelim guy in singles. Because Tony Atlas, after that tag run, was in and out of the company. Like, he'd come in for 6 months, do something stupid, come in for 3 more months, then go somewhere. Like, Tony Atlas was in and out. And after that team broke up, they didn't really have. I know Rocky Johnson teamed with SD Jones a little bit after Tony Atlas had left the first time, and it seemed like they didn't really have a role for him. And then once he left WWF for good in 85, he really didn't have a significant run anywhere else. But that's as intelligently as I can talk about him, because, like you said, I don't go back to the 70s, and a lot of those territories are not territories that I am super familiar with.
Right. It was an interesting, Dave was talking about on Observer Radio this morning, he had a run in Memphis in like the late 80s, early 90s. I want to say, I forget the exact years. And they promoted him as a boxer. They basically were just like, hey, you don't know who Rocky Johnson is. It's one of these like relics of the territory era where like you couldn't do this anymore. But like they were just like, hey, this guy's not a wrestler. He's a boxer. And he was like a trained boxer for many, many years. He was a sparring partner of Muhammad Ali and stuff like that. So it was like legit that but they had him come in as like a guy that didn't know any wrestling and was only a boxer. And then eventually they had him like learn how to wrestle. Hey, this boxer is really taken to wrestling. Let's teach him how to wrestle. That was his gimmick, was he was like a boxer turned wrestler, which I find just fascinating because, like, again, like this guy was like working, at Madison Square Garden, months prior, years prior, whatever. But yeah, in Memphis, they didn't know that. You know what I mean? They didn't know that, Rocky Johnson was a former WWF Tag Team Champion or whatever. It's just amazing the borders that were up before in the early days of wrestling, where you forget now, where it's like it's implausible that you would just be like, no, hey, this guy doesn't know how to wrestle. And it's like, yeah, he does. We just saw him. He's, you could do a character, but nobody would believe it. Nobody would buy it. But here it was like hook, line, and sinker. Hey, that boxer looks like good. That boxer could be a wrestler. He's like a former, champion. He'd been wrestling for 20 years or whatever at that point. So,
yeah, forget just Madison Square Garden. He was a headliner all over the country, for years and years before that. But, pre-internet, and the only way you would know it is if you were like a newsletter reader, which were like the smarks of the day, I guess. And it's like, yeah, you can pull that off. And how would your fans be any wiser? I mean, Rich, that was the days where in a lot of those territories, including Memphis, you would do the same show in every town on the loop, including the same title change in every town on the loop.
right.
Because again, how would anyone know? So they would do like a tag title change 7 straight days in every town, and then when you get to TV, the new champions would be there with the belts or whatever, but it's like, it was a totally different time where you can pull shit like that off easily. It's you went to the shows in your town, and that's it. That's all you knew, for the most part, if you were just a casual fan who went to the matches. So I could totally see how they could pull that off and treat him like he was just some guy off the street who was a pro boxer. So, wildly different times.
And then there is La Parka, which I guess we said, it's wild. You can't just like say that one guy's one thing and one guy's another. Well, here's a man who was the second La Parka. This is not, of course, LA Park. This is La Parka. But what's interesting about this La Parka is that he took the role that was already been done and already became, kind of a star with the original La Parka, the current LA Park or whatever, and kind of made it his own. And I think one of the most interesting things about, the unfortunate death of La Parka is that people were asking, LA Park, and he had to clarify, no, it's obviously it's not me, it's the other La Parka or whatever. And the thing that was interesting is people kept saying, okay, well now you can go back and you can be La Parka again. And I think there was a quote, and I forget exactly what the words are. I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but LA Park was kind of like, well, no, I can't, because like nobody can be that La Parka character like La Parka was. And I'm like, man, that's so, you know what I mean? Like, there's the original La Parka who made that character everything, saying like, nah, I don't know if I can go back and redo that. Like, that guy did so much with that character that he kind of made it his own. And I think that's the interesting and fascinating thing about this La Parka is that, despite being a ripoff of LA Park or whatever, he ended up like, making it a long career, making it a thing that mattered, and becoming kind of a full career into his own, which is tough. Like, that's like, the fake Razor Ramon becoming like a legend in WWF. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, yeah, whatever, that Razor Ramon's better than the original Razor Ramon. They're like, and that's not saying that LA Park is better than La Park, or that La Park is better than LA Park or whatever, but just the idea that he was able to kind of take that character, kind of make it his own, and make it as legendary as the original one is a testament to his skill as well.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, got his version of it over. Totally different. And they had a feud too. Don't forget that they feuded with each other, a few years ago. Eventually, they did business, but it was more of a kid's character, his version of it, but with the dancing and everything. But this, and make no mistake, just because it was several weeks or even several, I don't know when the dive, when was that dive?
Yeah, so I forget if we talked about the dive on this. I believe I want to say November or October was when the dive was. I'll find out exactly, but it was a while.
So either way, you're talking about, this is an in-ring death. because his death was the direct result of an accident.
October. I thought it was late October 21st. Sorry to interrupt, but October 21st. And we had reports that like he's not surviving the night. Like that everyone, the tweets out there were like, oh, this isn't good. He's done. Like this maybe they'll get him long enough for like friends and family to see him, but he's not lasting. And it's it's I guess a testament that he was able to live as long as he was. But October 21st, 2019 is when the dive happened. So Roosh was actually in the ring. He was the opponent that he was trying to dive after there. So.
Yeah, and we talk about it all the time. It's there's going to be more of these. Wrestling is very dangerous, and this was a 56-year-old man who was not in the best shape, and it's not like he never performed that move, but it only takes one minor mistake, and he did. This was essentially an in-ring death. He didn't die that night, but he died as the result of that bad dive. So it's horrible to see. But I think as fans, you just have to accept that. Unfortunately, every couple of years, something like this is going to happen. It's terrible, because we hadn't heard anything for so long. I kind of forgot about it, honestly. I hadn't been thinking about La Parka for weeks, and then it just popped up that he didn't make it. So just a terrible story and a long string of them. A lot of these guys who have died recently were older guys, and it was, I suppose it was their time. But you got Rocky Johnson and his age varied depending on reports. I guess, he was either somewhere between 75 and 78 or 79, depending on the source you believe. La Parka, he died as a result of an in-ring accident. Kendo Nagasaki, his was awful. I mean, supposedly his pacemaker malfunctioned.
Yeah. Because what was interesting is there was a lot of people that were obviously in Japan over Wrestle Kingdom weekend, and there was even a group of people that I saw had a photo with him that weekend. So 5 days ago or whatever, they're taking photos with this guy, and he had his pacemaker, and that's a very real thing that can happen with those. But yeah, it just malfunctions, and if it does, your heart doesn't beat. You know what I mean? Like your heart misses a beat, you have a heart attack, and you're done. It's just like, oh my God, Jesus, that's one where again, you know how you're always in that fear of death. That's like something that, it just happens. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's nothing you can do to control that. Just the thing that has been sort of put in your body to help you live doesn't work, and then you're dead. And it's just like, holy fuck, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? It's eye-opening. Yeah.
Pampero Firpo, I mean, he lived a long life. I think he was 89, and his daughter does a great job on Twitter, putting up clips, and she's been doing that for years. The Pampero Firpo 1 Twitter account, which I believe we follow. So there's a lot of old clippings and match listings and stuff, and she announced his death. And then Charlie Cook died, and then John Ian, that was an untimely death. Southern California, industry person, ring announcer, promoter. I think he had been ill, but this was a person. He was in his 40s or something, right? Maybe in his 30s or 40s. Which
I forget the exact age, but it was not old.
And Andrea Hart died as well, and that was I think she died at the end of last year, but it wasn't announced until early 2020, and that was Bruce Hart's wife, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Andrea, yeah. And then
or ex-wife, I think. Yeah, I think ex-wife. I forget what the situation was, but yeah, at some point was a wife of Bruce Hart.
And that young luchador, and I don't even know the details of this one, but that Vaquero de Tejas Jr., I think he was like 23.
I saw that one too. Yeah, I didn't know any of the details about that, and I didn't get a chance to look that up. But yeah, I was kind of, as I was unfortunately scrolling the Cauliflower Alley Club to try to get as many of these, down on paper. Yeah, I saw that one, and I was like, ooh, okay. Unfortunately, I don't know anything else about that one. But yeah, you don't really ever want a 23-year-old to die. So that's...
Yeah, no matter the circumstance, So, yeah, I mean, just an unusual string. I think for a while there it was like 5 straight days and 5 straight deaths. Mm-hmm. So, terrible way to start the show. Kids cancer. And,
I know, this is terrible. Well, there's life. The rest of the show is all about life because I guess it. I don't want to do like a cheeky transition between wrestler deaths and another topic, but Marty Scurll bringing life back to Ring of Honor, Joe. Oh God.
Terrible.
I hate myself for that. I said it. I qualified it. I don't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. But it was.
You should hate yourself. That was horrendous.
It was really bad. But let's talk about it. Marty Scurll's got a new deal with the Ring of Honor. First off, how big of a surprise is it, Joe, that Marty Scurll signed with the Ring of Honor? Even though, and you can give yourself a bad pack, take a little victory lap. We mentioned that'd be our favorite destination for him to end up, or we said that'd be the destination that we think is probably the most likely for him to end up in. And guess what? There he is.
Yeah, when we handicapped it, we said that that'd be the most likely landing spot. And then as time passed, it just looked like it was more and more of a lock. I mean, just a little hints. Like we had mentioned at the time, taking Ring of Honor bookings after his contract had already expired was a show of good faith. Popping up in the NWA was an eyebrow raiser. But the bottom line is, news came out, that's where he's staying. And it sounds like he got a tremendous deal. Big time money, the ability to work in other places, and depending on, which version of the report you want to believe, and depending on who's leaking what information, at minimum, he's a major part of the booking team, and at maximum, he's the guy in charge. So, but we've already seen ripple effects of his influence. Nick Aldis showing up in Ring of Honor, it's not an accident. I mean, it's that is a direct result of Marty Scurll helping to repair the relationship, which had grown ice cold. between the NWA and Ring of Honor when Dave Lagana, left Ring of Honor because, he was employed by both promotions for a while there when they were working closely together. When he stopped working with Ring of Honor, it's kind of those two promotions went their own ways and were no longer working together. So then Marty Scurll shows up at the NWA tape. He shows up at Into the Fire and the taping the next day. And then, it leads you to believe, Rich, that Scurll had a deal with Ring of Honor for some time. And either it wasn't finalized until now, or it wasn't reported as finalized until now. Because there's way too much smoke to a lot of the fire that we've seen since. And we know for a fact that he helped repair that relationship between the NWA and Ring of Honor. And, Dave Meltzer's report and other people have reported that Scurll is working to repair the New Japan relationship with Ring of Honor, as that has grown icy, to say the least, over the last 6 to 8 months. And, he's even going to take a shot in the dark and try to get something worked out between Ring of Honor and AEW. I don't necessarily see what the motive, why Tony Khan would think that that's beneficial to him in any way whatsoever. But could it hurt to sit down at a table with the guy and see if you could hammer something out? No, of course not. The worst that could happen is you leave the meeting and there's, and you're still not working together and don't have any, but it can't hurt to try.
Right.
But we've already seen, it's like New Japan had done nothing with Ring of Honor for months and months and months. And now all of a sudden, all this New Japan talent is working Supercard of Honor WrestleMania weekend. I mean, could it be a coincidence? Sure. Could these deals have been set in stone, long before March? But here's the thing. I think Scurll may have been in his new position longer than we think, and we're just hearing about it now because he never stopped working for Ring of Honor.
Right.
He was a champion. He was a champion that whole time. They never
right, exactly. And I think the other problem too is the speed at which we've seen things happen. Like, I don't, and we're going to talk about this a little bit. I don't believe I don't believe that he signed pen to paper this week and then got down to business and booked the WrestleMania weekend show, got Jay White and Will Ospreay to come in, got Nick Aldis to come in, ended up, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much, like, the idea that all this happened in 1 week, like, they were just sitting and nothing was happening, and then he signed, and then they went, okay, all right, now, Marty, what do you want to do? And he said, hey, here's what we're going to do here. We're going to do these 5 things right away. Like, there's no way that those things weren't in the plans a little bit. And maybe not officially pen to paper, but at least a verbal, a handshake agreement or whatever. Because some of this stuff was probably going to take a little while to get, in place and get things rolling. But then when he officially put pen to paper, it was like, okay, now we can officially go forward with a lot of these things. But yeah, I don't believe that, like, nothing was happening, and then he sat down at a table and said, hey, why don't we book Will Ospreay for Supercard of Honor? And they went, great idea, Marty, let's do it. Like they had to be in the works for a little bit longer. But
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it didn't all come together in the last week. But you can kind of, there's other clues too. I mean, it's really weird that, the collective moved the For the Culture show off of Thursday afternoon to Friday night, right? And then replaced it with another show, the Texas Forever show. And then 2 weeks later, the WrestleCon side announces that there's going to be a New Japan show Thursday afternoon. It's a giant red flag to me because the For the Culture show is set to be one of the big shows for the collective WrestleMania weekend. It already has a ton of hype. And I feel like the New Japan show didn't come together until maybe mid to late February. And then the collective, they got that For the Culture show out of Dodge. They don't want to go head to head with New Japan with that show. They want to, you know what I mean? So I feel like, now that could just be me connecting dots, but it's something I was thinking about today. And it's
it was like, definitely weird because For the Culture was one of the first ones that they announced that entire weekend. And it's the one that I would say that's got the most muscle behind it. I would say that show, if I was going WrestleMania weekend, that would be a surefire one that I'm going to. That looks like an awesome show.
Outside of Janela and Bloodsport, it's easily their most hyped show for that corner of WrestleMania weekend. So it's like, and the show is going to be a big deal. And it's like they had this cozy spot on Thursday afternoon, and then mysteriously it got moved. And then I found out, before the fact from Justin Bissonnette that they were putting the Texas Forever show in that slot, before it was announced. And he was like, hey, man, I'm going to be running Mania weekend. And I was like, let me guess, you're getting that Thursday spot. Because that had been vacated. They moved for the Colt. And it's like now 2 weeks later, we find out New Japan is running a show in that spot. And it's like, it seems to me there were some wheels in motion there, is all I'm saying. It's like, well, shit, we don't want this big time show we're trying to put together, this For the Culture, going head to head with fucking New Japan. So we'll stick these new guys who have never run before, we'll give them the spot and we'll get For the Culture out of here. And again, that could just be me, but all of it to me, it's like maybe the New Japan thing didn't come together until mid to late February for WrestleMania weekend. And then it's like, well, if New Japan's going to have guys there anyway, and maybe Marty Scurll has been working on this throughout December to try to get those guys onto the Supercard of Honor, because New Japan and Ring of Honor had not been working together at all. There was no Ring of Honor team on the World Tag League Tour. And I think the last time there was a Ring of Honor presence in New Japan, Marty Scurll and Super Juniors? I mean, there was no one in G1, right?
I think, who was the Super Junior Tag League? Wasn't it, it was someone, but it was kind of loose, if I remember correctly. Wasn't it, or there wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't in the Super Junior Tag League either, right? Yeah, so I think it would have been. It would have been Gresham in the Super Juniors, right? Marty was the year prior, I believe. Yeah,
and Marty Scurll.
Was he?
I think Marty was in it too. Yes, he was. He had the horrible match with
Oh right, the Taichi Warrior match, the one that just ended. Yeah, it just ended 10 minutes ago.
And Scurll always retained a very good relationship with New Japan, and to me, it's just too coincidental. I think, and it's his idea to run the free show in Baltimore, and it's just the plan is just to try to get as many people in the building as possible. I mean, you can see changes already is the point. The NWA relationship is fixed. The New Japan situation looks to at least be moving towards some big changes and being fixed. The free show in Baltimore. So what's the common denominator? What's the only thing that's changed? Him getting a promotion. Nothing else has changed. So, and these are all things that he had reportedly been working on. So, we'll see, and then, as far as, in ring, because that people forget, it's not just the booker's job to put matches together. It's all of these things, relationships with other promotions, wrestlers that you're going to put on your shows, long-term directions. And yes, who's winning the matches on that's almost the smallest part of the job, but it's the one that everybody hyper focuses on. Who's winning and losing the matches. But it's such a bigger job than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially at this level, at the Ring of Honor level. Like, I know firsthand, I've been to shows and seen Delirious running back and forth and talking to his media guys and talking to the camera guys and talking to his social media guys and checking. Like, that guy, they run the show, basically, on that day. Yeah, he decides who wins and loses or whatever. But, yeah, there's so much more of that. It's building wrestler relationships. It's maintaining wrestler relationships. Maintaining relationships with other companies, as you said. Just becoming being the office face, the corporate face, whatever you want to call it, of that company. That's the job, and that's what it is. And like, again, I don't want to do this thing like we often in wrestling do, like the after this point when this guy got hired or whatever, everything good. Oh, it must have been from that guy. But it's hard not to give Marty a lot of credit for this because we see where Ring of Honor was the last year and the momentum that overall Ring of Honor has had. And the lack of momentum, really, that they've had over the last year, the last real handful of years as well. The Elite leave at the end of, or the beginning of last year. Yes, they do the brash of immediate signings or whatever, and it's like, okay, there's some life there. We get Bandito, we got Jeff Cobb, we got these sort of guys, and then MSG happens, and then the rest of the year they were basically just a non-entity. The relationships with other companies seem to falter and become absolutely nothing. They kind of became a laughing stock in terms of the way they were booking, the new talent they were bringing, all that sort of stuff. So it's hard not to think, hey, look at what's going on in the last week. Like, I don't think we've talked this positively about Ring of Honor in years. And even in the days when they were doing really well, a lot of us, I mean, a lot of the topics that you and I were talking about were, well, geez, they know that the Elite are going to leave at some point, right? Like, are they ready for that? I mean, that's our show that we did for the last 3 years, is looking up and down that roster and saying, all right, let's take the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny and all the New Japan guys out of here. What do you have left? You know, what's left? What the corpse of this company is, you know, there's nothing left here once the Elite leaves. So that was kind of the topic for a while, and now we at least have a new topic here. The topic is, okay, we're building those relationships back up. And those are good. I mean, for Ring of Honor, where they're at right now, as long as they don't become over reliant on New Japan like they were during a lot of the Delirious days, which again, I'm not going to discredit him for doing. I have no issues with him saying, hey, look, book some New Japan talent and sell out all these arenas or whatever. Who cares? Like, it was good business and it got them to the biggest business they've ever had or whatever. It's just, there was never that next step. There was never that next plan. There was never the, okay, who are the next guys up? Who, you know, what are we doing with the talent on the way in and whatnot? And yeah, now I think, hopefully that there's a little bit more, there's just a new voice in there. There's a new energy in the arena and in the building or whatever. And you can feel it. You can feel it in the first week that he's, you know, technically took over this job. And hopefully you can feel it for, you know, the next few years. He's signed now for 2 more years. And yeah, hopefully there's better talent acquisition. I hope there's better training. I hope there's more relationships done with companies all across the world. Like, we know that Ring of Honor is better than what they've been in the last year. And it finally looks like, okay, maybe we're on that right track again, and Marty might be the one spearheading it, which is pretty cool to see too.
In all of my wild rambling and speculation, the bottom line is I feel like he's probably been in this new position longer than we all think, is basically what I'm getting at. And it's a new voice in the room and an American promotion. What's the other thing we always complain about? It's been the same people running American wrestling for how many years, and this is another new voice, you know, someone who has never been in a position of power in American wrestling. And look, maybe he'll be a shitty booker. I have no idea, but at least it's someone different who will presumably have some different visions, and we're already seeing some positive changes. And as far as Marty Scurll, I mean, the guy we've talked about this for years too. He always seems to make the right business move. He is a very crafty businessman. And even in the face of when people have thought he's made the wrong move, like leaving Evolve for Ring of Honor, he got killed for that in real time. People forget, because at the time, that was when Evolve was peaking and had all those names, and they were, you know, shuffling people off to NXT. And it's like, what the hell would you leave them for to go sign with Ring of Honor? Remember, they were pushing Marty Scurll. You know, he tapped out. I think he tapped out Tim Thatcher at WrestleMania weekend, and then he left. He went to Ring of Honor, you know, and people thought he was nuts. And then what happened while he was at Ring of Honor? He got hooked up with the Elite, and he had and he got hooked up with New Japan, and he had the best, you know, had the big 2-year run, and became a much bigger star for it, you know. And we've always talked about how Scurll was very smart on the come up to always sign short contracts. He never locked himself in. He would sign 6-month deals and 8-month deals, and it's like, he would never lock himself in for a long time, because then he would leave his options open. That's how he was able to get out of Evolve and go to Ring of Honor in the first place, because he had a very short-term contract with Evolve. And it was the perfect time to jump to, and he saw the writing on the wall and had the foresight and made the right business move and went to Ring of Honor and hooked up with those guys and hooked up with New Japan. He's always been a very crafty businessman, and we've always given him credit for that. And he got himself the perfect sweetheart deal. He got himself a big 6-figure contract, the freedom to work wherever the hell he wants, an office position, and how was he able to do that? Because it is a seller's market because of AEW. Mm-hmm. And this is what we talked about when AEW, became a company, whatever it was, last year or whatever. This was going to be a boon, especially to star wrestlers, because now they call their own shots. Look at the deal he shook out of them. And don't think for one second it wasn't because he had an obvious option with AEW. He had a potential option with New Japan and WWE. We talked about it at the time. You know, because you have that leverage, look at the deal they put out. And AEW, I don't blame them for not matching that. They would have had to give him a big 6-figure deal when there's already talk that they're at their talent budget limit. And they're being very smart not to overspend on their talent budget. Okay? You would have had to break your talent budget. You would have had to give him an office position, and you would have had to give him freedom to work elsewhere. AEW wasn't going to give him that.
Hell no.
And And I don't blame I don't blame Khan for not giving him that.
Right, yeah, we're seeing a lot of that talk there, like, AEW really blew this. That's a friend of the elite that goes over to Ring of Honor. Like, no, I think that's to me, that's a good deal for them to go, you know what? You got all that from Ring of Honor? Have fun, Marty. Maybe in 2 years we'll talk. Enjoy your time. Like, you walk away from the table there. You walk away from the table from that because, that's a sweetheart deal, and he got it because Ring of Honor is desperate to not lose him. And he had the leverage of AEW. Hey, my buddies are running this company over here. And, oh, hey, there's WWE. That's over there. I can always go there. So Ring of Honor goes, okay, here's our best offer. Everything we can offer to you. Office job, 2-year deal, 6-figure, work anywhere else. Call the shots, literally call your own shots or whatever. Nobody else can offer that. So, yeah, you'd be stupid, not to take that deal. And AEW would be stupid to match that deal. There's no way they're going to do that.
And 40 dates a year. It's an easy schedule in Ring of Honor. And it's like, and it affords him all that time to work the other places that he now contractually can work for. And it's like, yeah, look, Ring of Honor was in position to make him the best offer, and they did. And and he was wise to take it, and AEW was wise not to match it. I don't think there's any losers here. I mean, I think it would have been, AEW wasn't going to make it. They're going to add another executive vice president to the mix. I mean, I think they have enough executive vice presidents. Okay, they're out of office spots. So he got one who were in a perfect position to offer him all of that because they need a shakeup anyway in their front. It was just, this is just the perfect storm for everybody. So great job by Marty, great job by Ring of Honor, and great job by AEW not jumping in and trying to match. And obviously WWE wasn't going to match something like that, whether they were interested or not. And New Japan wasn't going to match. So, it's just a good job all around by Ring of Honor to lock down a guy who's one of their biggest stars to ensure that he wasn't going to make that jump.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Imagine if he had. Imagine if he did end up in AEW with all of the negative momentum that Ring of Honor had. I mean, this signing, like you said, it changes the tone, at least for now. I mean, they still have to put up. They still got to they still have to show us that they're making some positive changes from what was inarguably the worst era of the company from the second the MSG show ended until the second they announced signing Marty Scurll. That was the worst 8 months or whatever it was in the history of that company. And, now, look, there's some like you said before, now there's some positivity flowing through.
Yeah, and the one company I mentioned, when we talked about this weeks ago was New Japan of America was one that I was like, all right, well, if they're serious about this America thing, like Marty's a great get. And in a way, though, and I do wonder, I'm sure he went to the table with that. I'm sure he discussed something with them because this ability for him to work Ring of Honor, but also work other dates, and then the real quick softening of the relationship between Ring of Honor and New Japan leads me to believe that maybe would you be shocked to see Marty show up in one of those New Japan of America shows at some point, or show up for a G1, or show up for a New Japan Cup or something like that? Like, I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever. And I think that's a big reason why he probably took this deal.
Yeah, all things New Japan are on the table, obviously.
Right.
Because, obviously the relationship. Now, Harold May insisted that the relationship was never completely dead. And we all left because we're like, yeah, but you never use their wrestlers anymore, and your wrestlers never work their shows anymore. But you're telling us that the relationship isn't dead. Well, even that makes more sense now because these talks were probably going on this whole time. This is why I think Scurll, it probably was in this position a lot longer than we think.
Right. Maybe he said, hey, don't say anything official. I haven't put pen to paper yet, but it looks like I'm going to be the booker, so you're going to deal with me moving forward. And yeah, whatever old things you had or whatever, any beef that you had with Delirious or the old office or whatever, hey, go through me from now on or whatever. And that would make Harold May say, yeah, you know what? No, it's not totally dead, I guess. So
he obviously repaired the NWA thing before it was announced.
Right.
Because he was there, and he's got all this showing up in Ring of Honor shows, and that was all before this deal was in. So, you got to put two and two together here sometimes. So, this is and honestly, I think it's good for the wrestling business that he's staying in Ring of Honor.
Oh, absolutely. Of all places that he could go, I was kind of hoping for Ring of Honor because it keeps Ring of Honor healthy and alive. Because really, like you said, if he leaves Ring of Honor, it's like, all right, what are you guys really doing here? Like, what's going on with this company? Like, you're not investing in talent. You're letting your biggest stars go. Like, that would feel like the nail in the coffin. If Marty is gone and this New Japan thing isn't repaired, and the NWA thing never happens, and Marty's now out on the door out. It's like, all right, well, you got Roosh, you got Dragon Lee, and you got PC, like, but you're right back to July of last year, which is just like, all right, like you kind of just there, you're just kind of content, and now for the first time in a while, like we heard at the end of last year a lot of like, well, predictions of people saying, look, I could see Ring of Honor getting sold in the next year, I could see Ring of Honor just selling their tape library to WWE, or Sinclair getting out of the game or whatever. This at least lets you know, okay, no, they're not out of the game just yet. They're at least still interested in investing in wrestling, which again is good. We want that. You want more healthy companies. So this is, it works great for Ring of Honor, and B, I love it from the aspect of that now we're going to see Marty Scurll in probably a bunch of different places as well. He's going to show up in NWA, which makes the NWA healthier, and he potentially could show up in New Japan of America or New Japan, in Japan or whatever, which is cool because he always goes out there and he always kills it and the fans love him there. So by doing this, he's made 3 other companies a lot healthier. And that's just naming those 3. We don't know what else is on the horizon or whatnot. And that's more of a positive. He goes to AEW. Well, no, all those companies maybe go down a little bit or stay neutral. Ring of Honor obviously goes down a lot, and AEW gains another guy. But I don't know, like I kind of like this idea of him somewhere else. I don't want one company or 2 companies swallowing everybody up, even if one of the 2 companies is AEW, and I like their approach and I like all that sort of stuff. It's still the idea of them swallowing all the talent isn't always the best thing. I like that some of these companies still have some top tier stars and some top tier talent. So yeah, this is the perfect situation for me. I love the idea of Marty in Ring of Honor for the next 2 years. It just works the best.
You want as many companies as healthy as possible. That's what's best for wrestling. So, and again, it's a new voice in the room too, which is super important.
Yeah, and we have to talk about that too. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the new voice. I mean, Delirious came into power 2010. Originally came into power, replaced Adam Pearce. At that point, there was a brief Jim Cornette era. I don't know, 2011 to 2012, 13, somewhere in that area.
Okay, here's how it went. He replaced Pierce, and the Pierce era was just the problem with the Pierce era. Pierce replaced Sapolsky. It was just too much of a shock to the system because there were too many. And I listen. I went to those shows.
Yeah. Oh, I went to the first one I went to of a Pierce era was just like, what is this?
It was just so different, like finishes where guys were holding tights and low blow finishes. And it was just more of a traditional American television wrestling product and less of this hardcore, nerdy, work ratey, smarky product. It was a blunt object to the head sort of overnight change. I went to those first tapings and all of the, unlicensed music was gone. Everybody was using generic music. The matches were like 6-minute matches, and we're used to Ring of Honor where, it was such a shocking change that the crowd was. This was in the ECW arena those first Pierce tapings, and we were all just so stunned leaving the place. I remember the chatter was like, "This is not Ring of Honor anymore. What is this?" So it's not that I think Pierce was a bad booker. I just think the changes were too fast and too sudden. And it just, for those reasons, the fans didn't, and his era never really got going, and then Delirious took over. He righted the ship. He did a very good job. Cornette came in, and they were sort of sharing the position. Cornette talks about it openly on his show all the time. And if you go on YouTube, you can hear Cornette give the history of his time with Ring of Honor in extreme detail. But yeah, Cornette was probably ahead of, but he was working with Delirious. Make no mistake, but it was Cornette's baby. The stuff with Dan Severn and, bringing in the friends of Cornette, whether it was Mike Mondo or whether it was the Headbangers, all that stuff at Cornette's
D'Lo
fingerprints
Brown,
all
I
over
think,
it.
popped up too. Yeah. Oh God, the Headbangers. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it's like, what were their gimmick? I can't remember what their name was.
But it was so bad. What was it? They were, I forget what it was. Yeah, I'll find it out.
So Cornette, he has his time, and he did some good things, but it was just
the Guardians of Truth. The Guardians of Truth. Ugh, gross. Yeah.
Right, and then from there, Delirious. Once Cornette was out, then Delirious took the full control of the reins again, and has been in control, I guess, for 7-8 years now at this point.
Right, yeah. Whether it's 2012, 2013, I forget the exact era, but yeah, basically we're talking 7 years. So that's a long time in that position, and yeah, it's no booker is good for 7 years ever. Like, they'll tell you flat out, no, I'm not good for 7 straight years. There's some ups and there's some downs, and the Delirious era, like you said, like he kind of righted the ship post Pierce. And I thought the post Cornette era was pretty good as well. Like some pretty good stuff going on in Ring of Honor. And really, you know, again, we can criticize the Elite stuff all we want. And I did at the time, but we never, what we said at the time, and you can go back and listen to the shows, is this is fun. This is good. But make sure you're ready for when these guys leave, because they're going to leave at some point. We had no idea that what they were going to do was AEW. Like I always thought that maybe the Bucks would just retire, you know, one day just go New Japan full time, or that Cody would go back to WWE. Like, we don't know whatever it was going to be, but we always said, hey, this is fun. You're selling out arenas all over the place. You're a big deal right now. You're getting big money. You're on national TV technically with Sinclair, but like, be ready for when these guys leave. Be ready for what's next. And that was his mortal sin, was not being ready for what was next. He relied too much upon New Japan and the Elite talent, and that really kind of caught him. But more than that too, like, the stories just got kind of boring. The voice in the room got kind of bored, and it's like any booker should probably has a lifetime of, what would you say, 3-5 years tops. Most of them, they kind of need a refresh after that time. Almost all of them.
I mean, even less than that a lot of the time. It's very rare to be a booker for longer than that, but it's like, Delirious, his reputation to me will always be worse than the reality. I will always be the biggest Delirious defender. I don't think obviously towards the end it got very ugly, and we all, and you know, we've heard the stories of some really ugly stuff that went on in that company, particularly towards the back end. But he righted the ship twice from two very tumultuous, the end of the Pierce thing, which didn't work, and then you know, when he took over for Cornette after the Cornette thing kind of wore out its welcome. He really righted that ship twice, and it can never not be said that he did not reside over the most successful financial periods of the company. He was the guy in charge. And, you know, I'm sorry, he has to get some level of credit for that. Even recognizing the flaws of not preparing for a post-New Japan, post-Elite future. That was a mistake. You know, he did not do a good job preparing. We can see the last 8 months, he did not do a good job preparing that company for life after New Japan and life after the Elite. He just didn't. And that's his biggest failing. And unfortunately, that's going to be ultimately what Delirious is judged on for his cumulative decade booking that company, where most of the time he was a very successful booker and a good booker, not a great booker. But I think he was a good booker for most of that time, and you cannot argue with the scoreboard. You know, the company excelled to new heights under Delirious, not those other guys. It was him. You know, it just all fell apart at the end, and it's like I always say, pro wrestling bookers are like head coaches in sports. It's everybody thinks they're doing a shitty job even when they're not. And, you know, and he was doing a shitty job at the end, make no mistake. But I think people are way too hard on bookers a lot of the time. And I think a lot of times, you know, like head coaches, the legacies are written on the failures instead of the successes. And I don't always think that's fair. And I don't think history will be fair to Delirious based on the fact that when it was bad, it was really fucking bad. You know, and that meaning, you know, the last 8 months or so. And even prior to that, there were some ugly situations and times when things weren't going great. And really it was New Japan and the Elite that really saved. But look, that again, I don't want to rehash the whole Delirious. We've done that show a million times. But, you know, I don't think his run is nearly as disastrous or as bad as you'll hear in some other spaces. I'll leave it at that.
For sure. No, he's definitely above Pierce in that regard, and he's absolutely above the Cornette era. In that regard as well. So yeah, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of guys in charge of Ring of Honor, and you could pretty realistically put him number 2. So you know, hey, it is what it is. It's tough act to follow with Sapolsky, and like you said, business wise, obviously a much bigger business than Gabe, Pierce, or Cornette ever did as well. So yeah, it is what it is. But let's you know, we had talked a little bit about WrestleMania weekend there with Will Ospreay. Jay White announced for the Supercard of Honor show. Which got announced as well, that Ring of Honor will be coming to WrestleMania weekend as well. And I wanted to do a quick little check-in with WrestleMania weekend and stuff going on, because this week, man, we got some we're ready to do that show. We're ready to do our preview show where we bury everything and everybody gets mad at us or whatever. And I even told you, last week I was like, man, I just don't know if I have the energy this year to do it. It's just like every show kind of stinks, and I don't know how many times we can make fun of X's funny show name Y. You know what I mean? Like I was like, it'd get boring. I just don't have the energy. Usually I do the 8-hour podcast where I preview every single show going on the entire weekend or whatever. And I was just not feeling it. But this week's got me a little invigorated. Like I'm not planning on going, but I was the closest I would ever have gone this week as well, because we had some big names come out here. Shingo announced WrestleMania weekend. Zack Sabre Jr. announced WrestleMania weekend. Will Ospreay, Jay White, a lot of really good wrestlers, really good names popping up here. And WrestleMania weekend, man, it's starting to feel. It's not quite where it was in years prior, but it's starting to feel like an actual weekend again, and not just Marcus Crane's Bondage a Go-Go and other bullshit like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, before this week, it was like, it was Danhausen, Alley Cat, and fucking Shazza McKenzie, on every show. And like, but now, you got, New Japan running that Lionsgate show, and Supercard of Honor just is adding all the big names from New Japan. They're probably going to add a bunch more by the time people listen to this. And, things are definitely looking up from that perspective. I mean, the schedule, though, is still obscene. I mean, it's obscene. And I know we're going to do a big preview show where we make everybody mad at us again at some point as we get closer. But, there are absolutely some positives to, basically during every window, there's 4 shows running in basically every window. And that's great for wrestlers. I mean, wrestlers are going to be taking 6, 8, 10, 12 bookings a piece again and running around town and making $1 billion each. That's great for them. It's not great for anyone else. I mean, it's definitely, for fans, what you're going to get, and we had a lot of it last year, and it's probably going to be worse this year, is just overworked wrestlers who are tired, running from venue to venue. Last year I saw David Starr and the Lucha Brothers and LAX just slogging through their matches.
I saw David Starr 3 times in one day, by the way. That was great.
Oh, but he was never good.
Right. Every one of his matches was 5 minutes because he was so fucking tired. Yeah, it was.
Because he's got to hop in a fucking taxi and get to the next show, and it's like, that's great for the wrestlers, but it's a bad now listen, if you just want to go down there and get drunk with your friends and watch Tooth Guy ham it up with fucking Warhausen or whatever the fuck, then yeah, but if you want to go down there and the more shows listen, when there's 4 shows running in every window, first of all, that dilutes the talent pool right there. Okay. Everybody can't be everywhere. All right. So it's like, then your main event level guys, they're going to work out deals where they work the opener of one show. Then they're running down the street to work the other show. Then they're running back down the street to go to the other venue to work the opener on the next show. And you're getting tired. By the second day, these guys are exhausted. Okay. LAX worked half of their matches injured last year. Okay. Lucha Brothers, we had people telling us in text messages that these guys were getting in their hotel room at 4:00 in the morning, and then they're up at 9 because they got to work pancakes and pile drivers at 11 a.m. It's like, and then you wonder why Phoenix isn't even taking off his hoodie when he gets in the ring, because he's working a 6-minute match where he's not doing anything because he's exhausted. And I can't blame the guy. I would take every booking too. And then I would sleepwalk through these matches too. Make that money. But it's a poor fan experience, and and I suppose it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for good matches and kick-ass shows, the more bloated and bigger this schedule gets, the worse it is for you as a fan. Okay, that's the bottom line. If you're just looking to go down there and party and get drunk and go to Janela's spring break, and then the next day go to your bondage show and then go see Tooth Guy and then go see Alley Cat wrestle 19 times. And all right, I'm not knocking you if that's your deal, but you can do it. I guess it's good for those fans. Okay. But it's like, I would suspect most of our listeners, WrestleMania has peaked, but with the news this week, I'm kind of a little more excited about it because it looks like there's going to be some shows that you can sink your teeth into that aren't the same rehashed 8 to 10 talents that are working everywhere doing their comedy shtick and their irony stuff. And it looks like there's some shows that have some potential now to be the kick-ass wrestling shows that WrestleMania weekend was built off of.
Right. Right.
Until Janela's spring break spurned all of these copycats. And that's really the problem here is the Janela shows are so successful that everyone's trying to catch lightning in a bottle and find the next formula. The Janela shows.
Here's the thing: are they trying to find the next formula, or are they just doing the same formula?
Oh, I agree.
Let's get everybody mad, but yeah, they're not trying to find. They're just doing what Joey Janela did, but just putting their own, unoriginal twist on it. So,
yeah, and I mean, it's like, I got a lot of respect for Brett Lauderdale, and I think that Game Changer. He's obviously the top promoter in town, and they've had tremendous ideas with Janela and Bloodsport.
Yeah, for sure.
And even with their own core company. But I saw him arguing with people yesterday about the bloated WrestleMania weekend and defending it from the perspective of it's just more options. Well, of course he's going to defend it. Why wouldn't he defend it? Okay, he's running that little collective there. And the more promoters that he gets on board with that, the more that they're splitting the cost. Okay, every additional show, every additional promoter that jumps in on this collective, okay, means that he makes more money because his shows are going to kill it like they always do. Okay, Janela's going to kill it. Bloodsport's going to kill it. Why wouldn't he try to bring in every promoter from all over the country and jump in on this and they're running 3 rooms at once in that building, in that Cuban club. There's like 2 or 3 rooms at once where they're running stuff. And why wouldn't you? Because if you're splitting the cost of the venue and the ring and the licenses or whatever the fuck
you already got the building, you already got the ring, you already got the lights, you already got it at the entrance. Fuck it. Yeah, you want to come? Sweet. Give me, X amount of dollars and run your show. Get 2 p.m.
Chip in. You get more people to chip in and it just means more. And he knows his shows are going to do well. So it's like,
it's good business. Yeah, good business for him. But yeah, it's a business.
Never forget that these are promoters. Okay, don't lose sight of that. So he's out here on Twitter telling people, oh, this is the same as a music festival. You wouldn't complain about, music festivals with more bands. Well, here's the thing. The bands only play once, guy. Okay, in this scenario, the wrestlers are wrestling 12 times and they're not having good matches anymore. That's the difference. Okay, if I go to a music festival, the band I want to see plays once. They give me an hour set and it's good and they go home. And then I see a different band play and another band play over there. I see a million different bands over 3 days. I'm not seeing the same core wrestlers wrestling on every single show like they are. So it was a terrible comparison. It's the same as a film festival. No, well, I'm only watching every movie once. I'm not watching Tooth Eye on every show. It's I'm not watching.
Yeah, if you were watching Citizen Kane 5 times in one day, you'd get tired of Citizen Kane by the second or third time. Yeah,
and that's the problem here. So it's like I don't knock the guy's hustle. I understand what he's doing here. I get it. Okay, but the more bloated it is, the worse it is. If you want to see good shows and good wrestling, that's the bottom line, and no one's convincing me otherwise. I'll debate anyone and win. I'm not losing that debate. I mean, Rich, we talk to people who don't come anymore because they're like, I come and it's, matches ain't good anymore. And everyone's trying to tap in to that next Janela thing. And look, that's a special that you can't replicate that. And but listen, the tone of this was supposed to be positive. We see good things happening now. Here we go. Japan saving the day again. New Japan coming in and saving the day again. And the influx of talent they're bringing because they're running their own little show. Their talent is working Ring of Honor. Their talent is going to work a bunch of the WrestleCon shows, including the WrestleCon Super Show. And the WrestleCon Super Show got injected with a bunch of talent this week. So there's going to be shows that you can go to WrestleMania weekend that are just going to be kick-ass pro wrestling shows, light on shtick, if that's not your thing. But again, the problem is how much of that talent is going to be overworked and running around town and not able to put in their maximum efforts. And again, more power to the wrestlers. I'm glad that they can go there and kill it.
Dude, I take 25 bookings too. I mean, God, why would you not? It's of course I would be David Starr and Pentagon or whatever, work 9 times in a weekend. And hell, this year you can work. I think a lot of the venues, and I haven't mapped it out quite yet, but I think a lot of the venues are a lot closer too. So you could legitimately work. And there's stuff going on starting in Wednesday and running from 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. every single night or until 2 a.m. every single night or whatever. So yeah, you're good. Like if you could really realistically these guys could work 12 times if they wanted to. 12, 13, 14. I mean,
Danhausen's
going to. Like, Danhausen will be working at least 15 times. Good for him. I mean, good for him on doing that. But yeah, it might not make for the best, user experience or the best fan experience for that either. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't stop growth, I guess. And it's like, it wasn't that long ago that you had your 2 venues. Remember the old WrestleMania weekend charts? It was like 2 bar graphs. Here's what's running that venue. Here's what's running this venue. Each of the 3 days. And it's like now, and like you said, they're running from 11 a.m. until fucking 2 a.m. in these places. 4 or 5 shows a day. They're running multiple rooms in the collective venue, concurrently. They're running against themselves in some cases. It's just, my God, it's so much. It just spreads the talent pool thin. But it looks like this week, at least, it's looking up.
Absolutely. Yeah. We got the Lions Break show announced. That's going to be up on Thursday. As well, which looks pretty sweet there. That's the same time as the Texas Forever show, unfortunately. So yeah, those are going head to head, which kind of stinks for somebody who wants to watch both of those. The WrestleCon Super Show also on Thursday looks pretty good, but the WrestleCon Super Show is going up against Bloodsport as well, which is kind of this unfortunate thing about this WrestleMania weekend. That a lot of the shows that really do look good, a lot of them are going head to head and kind of battling for those same times. APM is also Progress on that day too. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
It's crazy, and there's so many dead times where there's like 4 horrendous shows running against each other. And it's like, and then there's these windows where there's like all of these good shows running head to head. It's so infuriating the way the schedule fell as well. So look, there's options. That's one thing. I mean, there's obviously options, with a schedule like this. And it's funny because there's a ton of promotions that ran last year that predictably are not running this year because they got crushed. I mean, there were shows that drew 6 fans, 10 fans, 20 fans, and those promotions aren't coming back. But it's like we have this whole host of new promotions that are replacing them, and this year is actually bigger than last year. I don't know when the breaking point is.
Yeah, this year there's the injection of shitty Florida indies that like the fucking mole on the side of independent wrestling, like these garbage ass. There's also like the dollar store GCW that's running, which is just the funniest thing ever. Their entire plan is, hey, we'll call ourselves, we're Generation Championship Wrestling, but hopefully someone's too dumb and goes to our shows instead, and instead of the Cuba Club, they're at the Italia Club. Like, how is this possible? I love this so much. It's GCW at the Italian Club of Tampa. So you got to know that you're at the right GCW and that you're at the Cuban Club and not the Italian Club. I love this idea. Someone's going to sit down and think that they're going to see Joey Janela's Spring Break and they're going to see fucking punk rock pro wrestling or, fucking whatever, some dollar store GCW bullshit. I love that.
Oh, it's dirty what they're doing. They stole the lettering. They copied the poster. They're running the Italian Club instead of the Cuban Club. It's the intent is to deceive.
Absolutely.
The intent is to deceive, and it's so dirty. And it's like, the first thing we need to do is ensure that promotions like that never run again. I hope those shows draw nothing. I hope, it's like they lose thousands of dollars and never even get an idea of running. Those are the first fucking leeches that have to go. It's ridiculous. And again, you might say, oh, well, the market will work itself out. But here's the thing. I saw Daniel Makabe announced for some of those shows. And I saw someone else I can't think of right now. And that's my point. By the time that someone like Daniel Makabe gets to a big match on Saturday night, he will have wrestled 7 times and he's fucking exhausted. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's great for Daniel Makabe. But how is that good if you're a Daniel Makabe fan who, he pulls a fucking hamstring wrestling for these fucking sleazy fucking shindy assholes on Tuesday.
Elevate Pro Wrestling, on fucking Tuesday or whatever. So,
and I'm not even knocking Daniel Makabe.
Oh God, no, get those bookings, man. Get that money.
You see the point I'm making, though. It's like it's just, it's just it's too much, and it really has. Last year. Bell to bell, you eliminate fucking MSG and, maybe the DDT show or Stardom or whatever. It's probably, the worst bell-to-bell year WrestleMania. And look, I watched all the shows. I was at half of them, and I watched the rest when I got home. So I'm not speaking out of ignorance here. Okay, I go every year. And it was from a match quality perspective, it was, and again, I named those 3 key acts earlier. David Starr, Lucha Brothers, and LAX sleepwalking through the whole weekend because they're fucking exhausted when those guys should be going out there having great, but they can't do it. And I'm sorry. I'm down on that. And I don't care who gets mad at me, and when we go over these shows, I'm going to bury the bad lineups again. And I don't care who gets mad at me. It's not my problem. I don't need you to like me, fucking random promoter guy. I don't care if you like me or not. I'm going to tell people that lineup fucking stinks, if it stinks. And a lot of these theme shows, it's just redundant trash. And I'm going to call it what it is. And I think it hurts the overall fan experience. I'm going to call it for what it is. That's going to be my opinion. If you don't like it, too bad. I'm not going to go easy on this. I'm not scared off because some people got mad at me last year. When last year we were doing it tongue-in-cheek anyway. But people just aren't, not smart enough to get the joke. But, that's fine. I'm going to be brutally honest again this year. If people think we're not doing that same show again, they know nothing about this show. Okay? We double down. So, get ready. There's a lot of fucking shows to preview, and most of them look like trash right now. But the ones that look good, listen, we're going to praise them. That's the way it goes. Anyway, Rich wanted to be positive here.
Yeah, there was our positive WrestleMania weekend segment where we talk about how things are looking up. It didn't quite work out exactly as I planned, but hey, it's good. We had to do a check-in regardless, and whether the check-in was positive or negative, there we go. But anyway, some good shows, some good wrestlers now popping up, but hopefully many, many more so we can drown out the crap going on that weekend as well. But let's move on here to AEW's TV deal. And you might be noticing, hey, these guys haven't done an ad yet. This is an ad-free show, Joe. Ad-free this week here on the Voice of Wrestling Flagship. But we do have a Patreon, though.
Yes, we do. Patreon.com/Voice of Wrestling. $1, $2, $5. $5 gets you everything we do. Rich, you're doing your Royal Rumble rewinds. They're getting fantastic reviews. That's your current series of the month, I guess. You like to switch it up. Get the Kings of the Tokyo Dome going up until 1/4. Now you're doing your Royal Rumble rewind. Who knows what's coming next? Maybe Rich will do Spring Stampede.
St. Valentine's Day Massacre. There's only one, so that could be pretty quick to do. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Spring Stampede would be fun. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah. Thursday TV reviews every Thursday. I am to our knowledge, Rich, it is the first show to break down the Wednesday Night War ratings. So, you get that every Thursday as soon as the ratings drop, usually about an hour or two after the ratings drop. And then a full review of the 2 shows. That's a lie. You get a full review of Dynamite and you get a
10% review.
Very lazy review of NXT, which I just can't work up the dander to care about. But yeah, Thursday TV reviews and then whatever else we think of doing. There's always stuff popping up.
Yeah, Q&As, fun little old reviews. A lot of stuff on there. Yeah, you're well worth the $5. I can tell you that overwhelmingly. Well worth the $5.
Daily news updates will be back now that I got my voice back. Jovember to Remember will be coming back now that I couldn't do stuff without the voice. It's just, I was never going to get healthy. So, I shut down some of that stuff for a little while, but that'll all be coming back now that I can talk again. So yeah, again, if you listen to this show, there's really no reason not to plunk down the $5. You're just going to get more of this. And who doesn't want more of this, Rich? I mean,
absolutely, yeah. Screaming at you and telling you the WrestleMania weekend shows you're excited about suck, but none of you listening are excited about those. So don't lie.
It's they love the ranting, Rich. They love the ranting.
Absolutely. VoiceWrestling.com/Patreon for more of that good stuff. But anyway, ad free the rest of the show, so nothing else coming up. But let's get into this here. AEW's new TV deal. I can't believe this is like the third topic we have to talk. There's not a lot going on this week in wrestling. Plenty of stuff to talk about. Press release here says TNT, Warner Media, and AEW have renegotiated and signed a new 4-year contract that would keep Dynamite on the station through the end of 2023. The 4-year deal is worth $175 million, just under $45 million per year, and includes TNT having an option for 2024 at a significantly increased price. The deal would also include adding another hour of television later this year, which would be taped on Wednesdays but air on another night, likely on TNT, but could be put on another Turner station as well. So the big news here is that AEW is not going anywhere. AEW now officially re-upped with TNT through 2023 for sure, and also an option of 2024 for Turner to pick it up as well. So that's the big news there. We'll talk about the additional show after that. But what do you make of TNT kind of giving that stamp of approval? Turner saying, yeah, we like what you guys are doing, and we want you to keep doing it on our networks until 2023.
Again, great news for the wrestling industry, and great news for AEW securing a long-term money-paying deal, 15 weeks into the run or whatever it is. So as we've been saying all along, they've been far exceeding TNT's expectations. TNT was going to be happy with 500,000 viewers a week, which is what their dopey little movies were doing. Just beat that and raise the profile of the network, get that average rating up. They've been crushing that. They've settled in just under 1 million the last 3 weeks, right back where they were basically when the show started. And this is a huge vote of confidence from Turner to not waste any time and lock this up long term. So they get $45 million a year, but they're no longer covering production. So it works out to about $20 million a year in additional funds that they weren't getting before. The previous deal, they were not getting any money from Turner, but they were getting their production covered and they were getting an ad split, right? Now they're getting $45 million, but they got to cover their own nut on the production. So it's going to come out to about $20 million to the bottom line out of that $45 million once you subtract the production cost. And they're keeping their ad split. And in addition, Rich, because they're adding the second show, that also increases the ad split because there's going to be another hour of television now that they're going to be splitting ad money on. So this is a great deal for AEW. They are now profitable by all reports because of this deal. And to be profitable 15 weeks or whatever, 3 months into your run, is pretty incredible. When in reality, you had to be planning on losing money for a much longer period of that. When you're talking about a pro wrestling startup, they're just doing everything at an accelerated pace. All of their success is coming at an extremely accelerated pace. So for all of the griping and the nitpicking of the week to week, booking and the shitty angles on the TV, when you take a step back and look at AEW in the big picture, they are just a massive success to this point. There's no other way to slice it up. They are a massive success. They're doing 100,000 pay-per-view buys in an era where nobody buys wrestling pay-per-views anymore. They've secured a long-term television deal to where they're being paid big-time money for their content. And what this does, too, this long-term deal, is it gives potential free agents, it's not a risk to sign with AEW anymore. And that's a big thing that I don't think enough people are talking about. Whereas you may have lost out on some free agent battles for certain wrestlers or whatever because they don't want to jump in on a company where they doesn't feel secure, where they're going to be looking for a job again if it tanks.
Right. You don't want to burn a bridge either. You don't want to say, hey, fuck you guys, I'm going to sign with AEW. And then 6 months later, AEW is out of business. You're, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? Like my job back now.
And not just wrestlers either, other business partners too. Right. Okay, this is a business. Okay, they're locked in. Okay, they're going to be. So from that perspective, it's great for them too, because it shows that they're a stable company with stability and guaranteed cash flow coming into the company. No matter what. Right.
Even a lesser extent business wise, people don't even know this too. Like booking out venues way ahead of time is a much better idea now. Going, hey, look, we could book through. Hell, they could book through 2023 if they really wanted to. Like, it's ambitious, but yeah, being able to say, go into an arena and say, hey, we'll come here for 4 dates over the next 4 years or whatever is that's tremendous. Versus, hey, we just need this one date because we don't know what we don't know what 2021 is going to look like for us. We might not be here 2021. So no, we're not going to put a deposit down on a venue, or we're not going to do this, or we're not going to invest in this, or invest in this technology, or invest in additional employees and all this sort of stuff because we don't know what's going to go on. Like all that is done now. You got 2023 locked until 2023. You're good. And that people might not understand how important that is for a business to know, hey, we're going to be around. We're not going anywhere. Barring some disaster that might happen on the horizon or whatever, but barring any disasters, we're here. We're here for the long haul, and that's allows so many more avenues to open up too.
And you have the ability now to reinvest some of that additional cash flow now too. So you've got $19-20 million in projected cash flow coming into the company per year that you didn't have before. You can reinvest some of that, or a great deal of that, or all of that. And who knows, there's a lot you can do with $19-20 million a year of additional cash flow that you didn't have before. And it's also just great for the overall health of the pro wrestling business, because now you have other networks saying, wow, well, look at this. Okay, networks, they didn't want anything to do with pro wrestling unless it was WWE until this show proved to be a success. So now you might have other networks saying, well, hey, look, someone other than McMahon is successful doing television wrestling. Maybe we should get in on this game, and then maybe they talk to the NWA or they talk to MLW or
well,
whoever.
I don't think it's a complete accident that I think it was the day before this got announced that MLW had said that they had signed with some agency to try to sell their TV. Like, I'm sure some rumblings happened, and MLW wanted to say, hey, look, guys, just so you know, there's another wrestling property out there that just signed a big money deal for 2023. Like, not a complete accident that MLW decided of all weeks to sign with a company to try to sell their TV. It was that week, so I'm sure not an accident whatsoever.
And all it takes is one head of a network to be impressed with what Dynamite has done for Turner to want to take a chance on wrestling on their network. It only takes one, so this is good for everyone. It really is. So it was great to see. It's really impressive to me, the accelerated pace that they've been successful. And hopefully this does lead to some other networks taking a chance on some other wrestling. And look, it's not going to work out for everyone. There might be scenarios where somebody gets TV and it bombs tremendously. It's not going to work out for everyone the way it has for these guys. This was the perfect storm, with the billionaire owner who kind of understood coming in and was able to get the huge stars from the elite and all that. So, it's not, it won't work. It doesn't, doesn't mean it's a lock to work out for everybody else. It's not just a magic trick to get TV. We've seen over the years with TNA/Impact and all the different stations that they've ended up in. It's not, automatic success, but it at least gives you a chance, So, there will be ripple effects. This isn't just good news for AEW. I believe it's good news for everyone.
And as far as the additional TV show, an additional hour of television that's going to pop up here, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. We don't know exactly what that's going to be. I know some execs were talking about AEW Dark and, moving that to the network. Like, I think we don't know exactly. We won't fully know what that is until, it actually drops or whatnot. And it might just be people talking and they might not know. But regardless, an extra hour of television on one of the Turner networks. We don't know if it's TNT or if it's going to show up on True TV or TBS or whatever, but still, that's another, an hour of television. That's a good deal. It's a great deal. I don't know for, us viewers, we're really reaching a point now where it's like, you cannot watch everything. Like you're getting to the point where like, it's going to be hard to keep up and watch every single bit of content that AEW puts out, let alone if you watch WWE as well, if you watch New Japan as well, if you watch anything else. Like, we are reaching a content overload point. But again, like, if you're AEW, of course, yeah, fuck, we'll do another hour of TV if you're going to pay us. We don't give a shit. But where that drops and what station it drops will be very interesting, and how the TV is structured too, I think, is a very, very interesting discussion as well, because there's not a whole lot of open dates, that where you're not running up against other Turner properties. We always talked about how Wednesday was guaranteed to be the day that Dynamite was going to run, because they don't want to run Monday against Monday Night Football or Raw. They don't want to run Tuesday, maybe, before we thought they wouldn't want to run Tuesday, because, Turner does have basketball properties on Tuesday, but that you might not be able to avoid that day, because Thursday is the big Turner basketball day, so they definitely don't want to run against that. And Friday is, Friday's kind of a death knell day. I guess you could put it on Friday, but I don't know if I'd really be super happy about Friday. And then, Saturday is Saturday. Do you really want to run Saturday? And AEW's got, pay-per-views that they're running on Saturday too. And then Sunday you're against the NFL again. So it's like, Tuesday is probably the day if they're going to drop it, or because maybe they just might say, fuck it, you're on True TV on Thursdays, and yeah, we don't care if you're going up against the NBA. Like, two different fan. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be, and I'm very fascinated to see what day this drops and on what network this extra hour TV drops on as well.
Well, the initial report is that Dark was staying, and that there was going to be another, like in other words, 3 shows.
Right.
One on YouTube, but now some later reports have come out. Our boy Tony Maglio came out and said he spoke to someone at Turner who said it's going to be Dark is actually going to be the second show. So I guess it would be moving off of YouTube and be moved, to either one of the Turner networks or the HBO streaming service or whatever the case may be. So it's still kind of, we don't know what's happening, whether it's going to be Dark is that second show, or as Meltzer had reported early on, that Dark will remain and there will be, in essence, 3 shows. So we have to see how all of that shakes out. I do think that 3 shows is kind of pushing it for AEW. I don't think 2 is too many, though. I think their roster is big enough for 2. They have plenty of stuff. I don't think that the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Moxley, and Cody have all wrestled on the same Dynamite yet. And that tells me that they have a roster big enough to sustain 2 shows because they have enough stars to sustain 2 shows, let alone undercard guys. So I think 3 hours of TV is fine. 4, you're starting to push it. But the thing about Dark is they never emphasized Dark anyway. I mean, Dark has totally become a throwaway thing. It's prelim wrestlers. There's only 300,000 people watching it in the first week. Garrett Kidney tracks that stuff, which is way down from where they started. And there's not a ton of effort put into it anyway. So Dark has kind of become their, I don't know, WCW Pro, or what would be the WWF equivalent, main event. And every now and then Kenny Omega.
Jacked. Yeah, you're jacked of the past era. Yeah, you're
right. But I suspect if there is another 1-hour show in addition to Dark, you'll stop those random pop-ups of Kenny Omega and some of the other. I think he's really the only big star that's been on Dark, to be honest. But we'll have to see how all that shakes out. I don't think, I've seen some people say they think the roster's not big enough to support all this. I don't know. It's like I said before, I don't agree with that. And they're already at a point where they're not putting everybody on TV every week. And I see people complain about that, but I think that's a positive.
Oh God, I want less. I would die to have WWE just not have a guy on it. We always talk about Brock Lesnar as our favorite character, you and I's favorite character, because we grew up in an era where, I don't know, maybe you didn't see Hulk Hogan pop up once every 5 weeks or whatever. The Undertaker in the days I was watching Raw, he didn't show up every single week. He'd show up, once a month or whatever. That's fine. That's all you need. Bret Hart, he'd wrestle on Raw every so. He'd come out maybe and do a promo. You'd see a video package, but he'd wrestle, once every 4 or 5 weeks or so on Raw. I love that era. I think that protects matches. I think it protects the characters. It makes the guy come across as stars. I think the worst thing that's happened to pro wrestling is everybody being on every single show every single week. It's not necessary. It's just become a truth. It's just become a thing we talk about all the time. WWE has brain rotted a lot of people where they only know the one way. And they won this wrestling war, and they've kind of told the tale of wrestling for people, for 15 years now, 20 plus years, or 20 years or so, at the point right now where it's like all they know is what WWE has done, and what WWE does is everybody is on every show every single week, and it's like, no, you don't need to do that. Guys don't need to show up all the time. It is better if Kenny Omega only shows up once every few weeks. It is better if Moxley only shows up every few weeks. If they're in a big time feud and they're in the central figures and in whatever, then yeah, you can have them come out every single week or whatever while that feud's going on. But there's no issue with, when Jericho loses the title, I'm fine if Jericho doesn't pop up on TV for a month or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. That is okay. But yeah, the idea that like everybody has to be on every single show every single week is just the mentality that we've sort of created in ourselves, but it's not something that we need to have. It's not a pro wrestling truth. It's a truth of one company, but it doesn't need to happen, and it shouldn't happen with AEW. So I have no issues with that whatsoever.
Yeah, especially if you have enough stars to keep popping a number, and they do. They've got Moxley and Jericho and the Bucks and Omega. I think that's all of the key ones, right? I don't think I'm missing anybody. I might be missing somebody else, but it's like you don't need all of those people on TV every single week, and they haven't done that. And that tells me that they could sustain another hour of TV because, okay, if the Bucks don't work on Dynamite, they could headline whatever's airing on whatever the fuck 2 days later on, another sister channel. Or whatnot. But like you said, if you're running up to a big pay-per-view match, yes, Moxley and Jericho need to be on TV every week until this pay-per-view, right? I mean, that's just a given. But it's like, it's like, but the Bucks don't need to be on TV every single week until they're in, a money program on the pay-per-view, which I'm sure is going to happen at some point. It's just one of these things like that we just think has to be done, but it doesn't. Give us a chance to miss people. You burn people out faster when they're on TV every single week. And the other thing is when you cycle people in and out, you're not, shoehorning everyone onto TV every week, it gives some room for other people to get over. You're not eating up every quarter hour with the same half a dozen stars every week. And then, then it allows other people to get some TV time and potentially get over. So there's just so many benefits to not putting everyone on TV every week and letting things breathe and giving people a week off. So yeah, we've been preaching that though for years.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I would say too is an hour of wrestling TV. I think we've unfortunately, again, we've gotten used to 2 hours and 3 hours and filling a TV show or whatever. An hour goes by in a wrestling show so fast. I mean, that could honestly be an hour could be one match, 2 matches, a video package, a promo, and you're out. You know what I mean? That's an hour. It doesn't it's so easy to do an hour of wrestling TV. So this idea that like you're going to burn people out or you're going to run too many matches, you're going to do all this sort of stuff. I think people will get burnt out just on the amount of content that's available if you're going to be a completist and watch all the wrestling. But if you're just going to say, hey, I just watch AEW or I just watch the important stuff in AEW, like I don't think you're going to get burnt out on, or like the show isn't going to burn you out in terms of like, oh my God, it's another Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page match or whatever. Like, I don't think that's going to happen because it's a 1 hour TV show. Like 1 hour of wrestling. I think, again, we've kind of lost sight of how go back and watch the early Raws, go back and watch the first Nitros. Those things are in and out so fast, you don't even realize what's going on. It's, Taker comes out, beats a guy, Bret Hart comes out, cuts a promo, somebody else goes out there and beats a guy in 10 minutes, they do a promo and then they're out. And it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty quick. Like, with commercials too, an hour television is nothing. It's nothing whatsoever. So it's like, yeah, it's a drop in the bucket. And yeah, there's no reason that AEW can't sustain that. An extra hour of television, no way. They'll be fine.
No, I agree, but even if it does ultimately burn people out and it is too much AEW for people, that's the downside of being so reliant on television money. If you want that $45 million, you got to give them that extra hour. You got to give them that second show. They want more content. If WWE wants that, that $1 billion in TV contracts, they've got to do the third hour of Raw. They've got to put, they've got to have SmackDown. If they want that extra $30 million to compete at that with Dynamite, they've got to put those 2 hours of NXT on the air. So it's like that's the rub. If you want that TV money, the unfortunate downside to that is you run the risk of overloading the public with pro wrestling and wearing out your audience. But what can you do? They're not going to give you that big money for less content. They're only going to give you that money for more content. So, I mean, that's the rub of the current era that we're in where, where American wrestling is so reliant on TV money.
Absolutely.
There's just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and cable networks are reliant on live sports-based television, DVR-proof television or whatever. So yeah, they're going to dole out the money. If they're going to dole out the money and that's what you're going to run your business on, then it is what it is. Like the bubble might burst. It might all explode. There might be a content overload. There might be a crash or whatever, but like no one's going to turn down this money. AEW's not going to say, whoa, no, an extra hour of TV. No, we can't do that, guys. Like, no, keep your $45 million. We don't want it. And WWE's not going to say, whoa, 3 hours on USA. We can't do that. Keep that, extra $500 million or whatever. No, they're going to say, yeah, fuck yeah, we'll figure it out. Who cares? Give us the money. Cut that check. We'll figure it out. So and you gotta figure out creative ways to not burn out your audience and creative ways to not run through all of your money matches and creative ways to do all of those things. And that's why it's a hard fucking job. And that's it's tricky. Yeah, the worst thing that happened to WCW ever was probably Thunder. When all of a sudden, in one fell swoop, there was, I think it was a week or two or whatever, that TNT said, okay, Nitro's now 3 hours. Oh yeah, and we're adding 2 hours on Thursday with Thunder. And it was like, oh fuck, like they added 3 hours of television like overnight, immediately after doing 2 hours for years and years and years and years. So yeah, it was an extra 3 hours just immediately tacked on, which was like, hey, you're not going to say no, are you guys? Like, you guys are successful. We're going to pay you guys more. Like, yada yada yada. It was a no brainer. Like, you have to do it, but it in a lot of ways, it wasn't the one reason why the downfall happened, but it was a big reason why it happened. So, it's trying to avoid that and make sure that doesn't happen to you too. But hey, if you're, it's the downside of being successful is that people want more of you. You need, networks want more content. Networks want to give you money, and now you got to deliver on that. So.
Yeah, which feeds more into our argument of not making sure you shoehorn everyone on TV every week. But the key there is you need enough stars to be able to space them out and not burn people out on them. And what's always the case in wrestling, it always comes down to constantly making more stars. That's the key to everything. The more stars you have, the easier it is not to put the Bucks on TV every week, not to put Moxley on TV every the more stars you have, the easier it is to, when Jericho does lose that title, to let him disappear for 6 weeks instead of, where you have to put him on TV because he's the only guy that draws. You know what I mean? So that's the key. And it's a delicate, tricky balance. And, good luck to Marty Scurll and good luck to Tony Khan and their room. It's hard. Booking pro wrestling, especially television wrestling, it's not easy. It's hard, and it's not an enviable job. It's a job that everybody thinks they can do. It's one of those. It's like sports play-by-play is another one. Everyone thinks they can do that until they're sitting.
You can't. Yeah, you can't. It's so hard.
And it's like, and this is a different kind of challenge, but everyone thinks they can be a pro wrestling booker at any level until they have that pencil in their hand. It's like especially big time major league television wrestling. Let alone it's hard enough to book an indie. To talk to those guys. It's not easy. You think it's easy, but it's not. And it's extrapolated when you're talking about Major League Wrestling.
Yeah, so I like our position where we just say, hey, you suck. And then that's it. That's a lot easier. This is what you should do. All right, we're done. Bye. I'm going to go to bed now. So
of course, we say that, but how many dopey wrestling podcasts are out there that no one's listening to? I mean, there's different challenges here. It's easy to criticize, but it's what's not easy is to be compelling and be charismatic and entertain people while you're criticizing and have that balance of not just burying shit for the sake of burying shit, which gets old real quick, and not just fire out hot takes for the sake of having hot takes. There's a balance there too with what we do. We have to be honest with the audience at all times because I truly believe the audience sees through bullshit, right? But sometimes honesty doesn't lead to fiery hot takes or exciting radio. So we have to find ways to be compelling and interesting, even when there's not a hot take to throw out there. Because you can't force the hot takes and you can't be dishonest. So there's a challenge to what we do too. It's like, that's a good example though too. Everyone thinks they can do a podcast, right? And then they do a podcast and they're 6 weeks in and there's 9 people listening and they're burnt out and the podcast goes away. How many podcasts have come and gone since we've been doing this podcast? People think this is easy too, and it is definitely not easy. It's a grind, and it's hard, and it's especially hard if you're legitimately trying to build an audience, okay? If you're just trying to pop 6 of your friends, yeah, no problem. But if you're trying to build an audience and do a good show and be compelling and get people to listen and build it is not easy either. So I think that's another good example. Sports play-by-play, pro wrestling booker, and successful podcast. Those things that seem easy that are not easy at all.
I was going to jump in there and say you were talking about how hard it is to have compelling takes and still be entertaining. I was going to say, Joe, I think we do that. I think we do it well. We're good. We're good at this job. But anyway.
This is the best wrestling podcast in the world. Of course we're good at it.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's be honest.
Fantastic.
We're great at the audio. We're great at the audio.
So let's keep that momentum going, Joe. Let's get into it, Joe, because we got to talk about some hot U.S. wrestling action here. And I said U.S., but we'll do it. Let's start with U.S. here. Let's go. Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill, January 12th, 2020 at the Bomb Factory. Joe, you were there live. What was your live experience of Impact Wrestling Hard to Kill?
I will say this first, from a professional level, the synergy between Anthem, owning both Access TV and Impact Wrestling was very obvious. I've been to these events where you get, press passes or whatnot. But because all of these entities are under one umbrella, this was professionally handled and the best event I've ever gone to in terms of how we were treated as media people. There's no question about that. Sean Graben does a tremendous job. He's the PR guy or the media relation. What's his official title? Media relations.
Media relations. I want to say, let me get his exact title because he deserves. He's kind of, a lot of people might not know the name. People in the wrestling biz know the name, but
people who do what we do know the name. Believe me, he's outstanding, and he does a great job here. He works his ass off, and they treated us very well. So that's first things first. First class all the way. Nice sandwich spread out there, Rich. I gotta tell you, I crushed the sandwich spread. There's no question. I took care of that. There was only one person there who crushed the sandwich spread. I'm not gonna say it on the air, but you know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
There was only one person there who made more trips to that sandwich spread than I did. Let me tell you, JL ate a few sandwiches. Trust me.
You love your free food. Yeah, you're taking full advantage of the free food.
I was hungry. It's a 3-hour drive, man. So I didn't fly in first class like some of these other guys. Okay, we're a small time operation.
Yeah, a little mom and pop operation. Yeah, we don't have.
I'm not turning in my gas receipt to Rich here. Okay, I drove 3 hours, and
you didn't take the jet? Oh, come on, Joe.
On my own, and I was hungry. So I crushed that sandwich spread, but first class all the way, and yeah, it as we review the show, I think there was one particular live observation, which is where I am going to zig where you are going to zag, based on you watching the show on TV and me watching the show live in the arena. There was one major observation that's going to be way different. But look, Impact, they do a pretty good job. They've got their fan club or their platinum club, whatever they call it, members who get to come in a little early, and they take a picture with all the current champions. And, and then they have some post-show stuff that they do. And Anthem took care of the media very well, and they gave us good seats. And we didn't have to sit with the unwashed masses. Okay, we had our own little area.
Yeah, the normal cretins.
Yeah, none of that. So we had our own little area, and then they had the little press area set up for the wrestlers with the post-match comments like you see in New Japan. We've got that up on the Patreon. We got that on the $1 tier?
I believe so, yeah. I believe it's available to all tiers. So
all tiers. So if you want to, I took some, I got some, a lot of the post-match comments from the wrestlers who participated. They didn't all participate. We've got that up on the Patreon. You can check those out for $1. So we got that up behind the paywall. I actually did some work, Rich. I didn't just go there to eat sandwiches. I did do some work at this event here. And, they take care of you. They took care of us very well. And we had great sight lines to the ring. And, so hard to kill. I guess we should break it down, huh?
We should. Let's start at the main event here, and obviously the big story going into this main event. It's Tessa Blanchard and Sami Callihan for the Impact World Championship. We, in our preview of the show, said, well, there's no doubt who has to win this match. It has to be Tessa Blanchard. Tessa has to beat Sami Callihan. There's no question that has to be what happens here, and that is what happened. And we'll talk about the match in a bit. But obviously, the lead up to this match was a little muddied with some reports and eyewitness accounts of Tessa Blanchard and her past behavior and racial accusations and bad behavior and all this stuff that had sort of always kind of felt like it was festering or kind of bubbling up, all kind of came at the surface because she put a tweet out. I want to say, what was the day? Was it Friday or Thursday? I forget when she put this tweet out, but it was essentially just like, women of wrestling, we have to, support one another, yada, 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 whatever. She just kind of had to slap tweet on this, this dumb little kind of motivational thing about, hey, if you don't support me, like, whatever. And that led to the floodgates opening of all these women that have had past experiences with her that were very, very negative, whether it's, the accusations of, racial, stuff like that. There was just accusations of her just being kind of not a great backstage person. That's someone that was great to work with, which is things we had heard for years and years and years. And everybody with any bit of a brain would know, hey, why is Tessa Blanchard still in Impact Wrestling and not, NXT, despite having, 15 tryouts there and having, the relationships with people that are in that company and whatnot. But yeah, there's probably a reason why she's, in Impact and nowhere else. But all that kind of festered and all kind of bubbled up all in the lead up to Hard to Kill. And it became kind of a question of like, all right, well, like, I still think she's the right call, but yeah, it was kind of fascinating to see how that was going to go. And I was kind of curious your live perspective before we kind of talk about the match itself. What was kind of the tenor around, I guess, the media area, and what was the tenor around kind of the audience as well, knowing, what was kind of building up and what, the social media storm that had gone on in the days prior to this match?
Well, Impact Wrestling did not make Tessa Blanchard available to the media. Surprise, surprise, Rich.
Yeah,
but
I'm stunned. That didn't happen.
She, I mean, the absolute worst timing for all of her enemies to come out against her. All triggered by what looked to be just an innocent, stupid motivational tweet that she put out, which I bet now she wished she didn't do. And all of her enemies came out of the woodwork to tell a bevy of stories, some of which I had never heard before, some of which I had heard before, none of which were a surprise. I mean, like you said, we've been hearing stories about Tessa Blanchard for years. And, she's never had a reputation for being she's always had a reputation for catching heat from tons of people, in particular the women that she works with. So none of it was a surprise to me, even some of the news stories that I had never heard before. But as far as in the building, when they ran down the card at the beginning of the show, she got the biggest reaction out of anybody by far, when they put their faces on the screen. But then when they introduced her for the bout, for her entrance, she didn't get any reaction, positive or negative. It was weird. It was just like nothing, and I was like, wow, so this match is going to be weird. But then once the match began, whether through the work or whether for whatever other reason, she was getting Tess a chance and she was the clear crowd favorite. And they did pop big when she scored the pinfall. Now, you got to be careful with that because fans will pop for any title change. But this wasn't just a title change pop. It was sustained. And now there were smatterings of people who you can tell were aware of what had gone on that weekend and were firmly against her for that reason, because you had some fans giving her the old double middle finger. You know what I mean?
Right.
When the "she deserves it" chant was going on, she deserves it, you had maybe a half a dozen people going, no, she does, like the counter chant. You know what I mean? So there was some of that, but my feeling, I got the sense that either the vast majority of the crowd either were not aware of the controversy or did not care. That was my sense being in the building, with a scant few people who very clearly were aware and did care, but they were drowned out by the rest of the crowd who, when she won the match, it really did feel like a celebration.
Right.
With the fans. And then even the Impact crew came out from the back after it went off the air. And after she gave her speech to the crowd where she loosely addressed the controversy, and we do have that behind the paywall as well. I did manage to get that clip. Then the Impact crew, the whole crew came. Well, not the whole crew, but most of the crew came out with some exceptions. And they all hugged her and they put her up on their shoulders. They really made a big deal out of it. More so after they went off the air, which I don't know what the idea was behind that, because they had some satellite time left, because I saw Josh Matthews give his final log, and there was like 7 minutes left before the top of the hour. They left about 7 minutes on the table. So they could have shown her speech, but I guess they just weren't planning on showing any of that. But Gail Kim came out and gave her a hug, and she went down the line, hugged everybody. People were crying up on the stage. They had her up on their shoulders, and people were standing and cheering. So to answer your question, my overall sense was that people either did not know or did not care.
And we're starting to see now, as we're recording here, I think she just released a statement. So I don't know what, I haven't had a chance to really read through it or whatnot. And I don't want to do it right now. Have you checked it out or have you seen it all?
I know nothing of it.
Yeah, you can see if there's anything you can glean from that right now. It's very PRE. It's not to anything that you really need to. It basically just denies the biggest of the charges. She doesn't deny that she's an asshole to a lot of people. She basically, more than anything, denies the racial accusations that were made about her, saying that I never said the word and never said this or whatever. So yeah,
I will read it.
Okay,
sure.
There you go. Good.
Quote. Over the last week, I've been accused of calling a fellow wrestler a racial slur. To read this allegation has been personally upsetting. To be clear, I absolutely did not use that word. Well, she's denying it. That word is not in my vocabulary. That word is not in my heart. Racism is not in my heart. Yet I know many people have to deal with racism in a way I never have to. racism is an awful part of American history and is equally awful that it's still part of our society today. While I did not do what was claimed, I stand ready to use my platform to support the fight against racism however I can, end quote. Listen, she's denying it. She flat out denied it twice in that statement. So, there's a lot of eyewitnesses who beg to differ, as we saw over the weekend, including La Rosa Negra herself, who the slur was allegedly, said towards, in addition to being spit on. So this is a flat out denial. So I'm curious to see how those people who were eyewitnesses to this and claim that she said it react to this. We got ourselves an Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders situation.
Yeah, this isn't going away. That statement means it's not going away. Yeah, in this case, she said. Warren says Sanders said a woman can't win. Sanders says he didn't say it. Nobody else was in the room. What are you going to do? You believe one, you believe the other. With Tessa Blanchard's reputation, no one's going to believe her, especially when you have 3 or 4 people who have already gone on record saying that she said it and that she spit. Well, she's not saying. To be fair, she didn't say anything about the spit. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's a lot of other things that happened over the weekend she left out, but yeah, that's the one that she's vehemently denying. So,
yeah, I did see someone say over the weekend too that that the other wrestler instigated the incident. And they were throwing slurs at each other and spitting on each other. I don't know if that makes it any better or worse. If Tessa did say the slur,
a lot of spitting going on. Who spits that much?
I mean, Tessa is not a popular person.
No,
and she makes people upset. And I don't know, but anyway, I'm glad she got this statement done before we finished, because we would have done this whole set. I think it's a pretty important part of the story that she finally said something definitive on it. I mean, she's got 2 denials in there, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a situation in the building of Twitter reality versus reality, or just people not caring. I don't know. There were a lot of people of color in the crowd, and none of them, they were all cheering her. So it's like, I don't know if I think it was more of a case of maybe people just didn't know. And I think if you're extremely online, you sort of forget that most people aren't.
Right.
And maybe most of the people in the building just had no fucking clue of any of this at that time. Remember, the story was only about less than 48 hours old at that point too.
Right. I don't know about other people, but I have a bunch of wrestling friends who will text me like news like 4 or 5 days after it happens. Like, I don't know when they decide to go onto a wrestling website and read some news or whatever. You know what I mean? But like, so they're like, hey, what's this thing with like this guy? And I'm like, oh, that was like 4 days ago. But I forget, like, I'm connected with every second of every news that I know everything that's coming on and everything that's happening or whatever, but not everybody else does. They read the wrestling news however they read it and however they consume it, or, however it gets to them. So yeah, we always kind of take for granted, us in our bubble, that everybody knows what's going on in our bubble. But yeah, unless, it becomes major news or someone's seeking it out, like, not many people would know about this. Just somebody who just goes to the arena and buys a ticket for them and their wife or whatever and sits in, they don't know any of this. They're not aware of any of this. So yeah, it is kind of one of those weird things where, again, you have to realize, like, wait a minute, Twitter is Twitter. It's not necessarily the same thing for everybody. So
yeah, it's you take for granted when you live in this bubble, and we're on Twitter. It consumes. I mean, it just, for what we do, we're on top of all this stuff, and a lot of people are not. So, in the building, I didn't get the sense that they were. To get back to answering your question that you asked about 20 minutes ago. So, all
right, let's go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say what you were gonna say. You want to break down the match now and review the show, or what?
Yeah, let's do it. So the match itself, I'll give my opinion first, and then I'll kind of see what the live perspective was. I enjoyed this match a lot, and the big reason why I enjoyed it, the big reason why I thought it was a very, very good match, not necessarily Tessa. I did not think Tessa was great in this match. I thought she played her role pretty well for the most part, but I thought this match was maybe the singular best performance I've ever seen from Sami Callihan. That was a guy, like you said, when Tessa came out, she kind of got tepid reactions. The crowd was a little dead because I think a lot of the stuff before this had the crowd kind of, they just weren't feeling it. They just weren't into it or whatever. Tessa wasn't getting that big of a reaction. And I think a lot of it due to Sami Callihan working his ass off, being the most detestable, biggest fucking asshole you've ever seen in the world, being just the most misogynistic, the most disgusting, just the biggest fucking asshole heel you can imagine. Within 10 minutes has that crowd living and dying by Tessa, living and dying by every single bit of momentum she had, and working through a 23-minute match that really never felt like it to me, never felt really like it lagged at any point, never felt like it really kind of got down at any point. And it felt like for those 23 minutes, they had a really, really good match with Sami Callihan breaking her down. She'd pop up for a little bit. Sami would break her down until eventually Tessa just rose up and won the match. And I didn't think Tessa was great in this match, but I thought Sami Callihan was an exceptional pro wrestler in this match. And I'm not a guy who enjoys Sami Callihan at any level. I've left many events with Sami Callihan in the main event because I don't want to see that guy wrestle anymore. But I got to give credit where credit's due. I thought this was his best performance I think I've ever seen. What'd you think of it, though?
I much preferred their previous pay-per-view match. I forget what show that was. Man, I got to tell you, watching Tessa live really exposed her to me. First of all, she's very tiny. She's significantly smaller than Sami Callihan, who is not a large man. So she was strikingly small. And she looks like she's big on TV. Like a big, sturdy, strong physique. Tiny. And it's striking in person. And the only other time I had seen her live, I think, was maybe against Brian Cage in Wrestle Circus. And everyone looks tiny next to Brian Cage. So it's like maybe it wasn't as glaring in that instance because it's like he makes everyone look small. But I'm like, man, she's like really small compared to Sami Callihan, who's who's not a very big male wrestler. And the other thing that got exposed to me is man, she just works very light. I mean, she has this reputation for being this hard-hitting, imposing female wrestler. That is not the case live. I mean, her stuff was just not like Sammy's stuff. He was laying it in.
Oh, he was, yeah.
And her stuff just comes off soft and light and just not believable. And it's hard to suspend disbelief. It really hurt the match for me. I gotta be honest. Like, she was a step slower than Callihan. Her shit just lacked impact, no pun intended. Just her strikes and her moves just lacked zip and impact. And she came off like an indie wrestler, and he came off like a professional. Yeah. And I'm no big Sami Callihan fan either. I'm watching her, and I'm watching this match, and I'm thinking, she is not a world champion of a major league pro wrestling company. She just isn't. And this is coming off gimmicky to me because she doesn't meet the standard. And I have never thought that. I love the first match they had. We came on here and praised it. Yeah. I thought it was a great match. But watching her live gave me a whole new perspective on her. She just, and even compared to some of the other male wrestlers on the card, it's just not there, man. Like I watched Elgin and Edwards, and my God, was that two tremendous professional wrestlers having a tremendous professional wrestling match. We'll talk more about that later, I guess. But again, she's just not at that standard. She's not at that level. I mean, she didn't come off that way to me live at all. But the crowd was 1,000,000% behind her. I think Sami Callihan was the perfect foil for this situation. Obviously, because he's completely unlikable. And in all the right ways in this scenario. I mean, he's got go-away heat in some other places, but here he's just a great heel. Oh,
he works so well in Impact. He is a guy that I still see him at AEW shows. I still see him locally, and he just does nothing for me. And I hate him, and I roll my eyes. He comes out on Impact, and he's like one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. He's just perfect for Impact. He's just grimy enough. He's just as much of an asshole as you need. Like it is. And that's why I say, like, in this performance, for people that have not seen this match, I'm 100% with you. This entire match, I'm thinking, oh, Tessa's not it. Tessa's not it. This entire time, I'm thinking, oh, man, they're going to do this because they have to do it. And I get it why they're going to do it. But this isn't going to work. I'm watching this match going, someone else is going to win this title from Tessa in like 2 months. And we're just going to be like, well, they had to do it, but it didn't work out. Because you see in this match, and that's why I said, like, Sammy, I felt like he was just working his ass off, whatever he could do. Is everything okay over there?
Yeah, I just got the dog barking.
Okay, that's fine. All right. I thought it was a loud squeal. I just want to make sure the dog was all right. All right, we're good. But no, I mean, Sammy, I thought I think he realized the crowd was a little tepid to begin. So he just got, as he ramped up whatever the Sammy Callahan thing is, he got that volume all the way up. That volume was at 100. And he's spitting and doing snot rockets and snarling and slapping her. And like you said, really laying it in, really making it seem like he is, as you said, the most detestable man you can ever imagine. Just an absolute son of a bitch. He's screaming at her in the ring. He's just he's so unlikable. Nobody would ever want Sammy Callahan to win that match. And then so the fans start kind of cheering for Tessa and cheering for Tessa. And he was great at cutting them off. He was great at doing everything. But like when the match was over, all I could think about was, oh my God, Sammy Callahan was great in that match. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, Tessa just won the world championship. And it was like she won, and it just to me felt like, as kind of the nerdy pro wrestling fan, all I could think about, the only reaction I had was, holy shit, Sammy worked his ass off in that match. What a performance. And I'm not thinking at all about Tessa after that. I don't think she did enough in the match. And like you said, the work didn't seem all that well. Or all that well worked. And yeah, in the building, you would know even more, how that sort of felt and looked in real time. But yeah, even on, video, it just like, or, watching on TV or whatever, it just didn't, she just kind of, I don't know. She didn't jump off the page to me. Sammy Callahan did. And that to me is pretty worrisome. Like I wouldn't change this result. Like Tessa's probably the way you have to go. That's the way it's been built. But don't be surprised if by, April, someone else is winning that title and Tessa's not the champion anymore, because that might not be able to last forever, and she might not be able to go at that level that you need at a main event. But my takeaway was, what a performance by Callahan. Good match overall, but almost all of that credit I'm going to give to Sami Callihan, and very little I'm going to give to Tessa, unfortunately. So
in this company, though, it's like, I don't know, because what are the business metrics? They're on a network that's owned by the same company that owns the wrestling promotion. So there's really no pressure there to deliver. They don't really do house shows. They got kicked off of Twitch. So what is
your boy got him kicked off? We're going to talk about him in a bit.
So, I mean, they do minimal pay-per-view buys to begin with. So what is she going to be judged on? They can keep the title on her as long as they want. And their feet is never really to the fire from a business sense, because what are the business metrics they're being measured on? Do you see what I'm saying? So from that perspective, I don't know. And, I'm curious to see what kind of pay-per-view numbers this show will do in comparison to recent Impact pay-per-views. And if the idea of a woman winning their world title really made a business difference. The building was full. The building was a sellout. Or I don't know if some of it was papered, but the building was full. There were some empty seats on the floor, a few rows of empty seats, but they were more than made up with the standing room. So I don't know if those seats were bought and people just thought they had better sight lines by standing. The point is, there were more people in that building than there were seats. So, people came out for the match.
Yeah.
And that was the match. I mean, there's no other match on this show that drew a dime.
Oh, God.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, nothing.
So we'll see what the pay-per-view did. And then, look, this is Impact, and the controversy isn't going to stop their plan. They are going to, for lack of a better term, Rich, they're going to post through it. Okay, they don't care. Don Callis doesn't give a fuck. Okay, Tessa Blanchard would have to murder someone before they change their plans. I mean, it's just, I thought maybe there was a chance at the peak of it that it might change their minds. But at the end of the day, I felt that they were still going to go through with it, and they did. They're just going to ignore it. They hired Mike Elgin at the peak of his problems. They don't care. And really, what negative effect has it had? None. I know this is a different situation. They hired Rich Swann at the peak of his issues. Again, it's like Impact exists in their own little corner of the world. It just doesn't matter. Probably because they get away with some of it because they're so low profile. And they get away with some of it because these things aren't the issues that we think they are because we're in the bubble. These issues aren't as big, and I'm talking about Swan and Elgin and things like that, as we see them from our perspective. Now the Tessa thing, time will tell.
I was gonna say that those other two are like, the Swan one is whatever. Yeah, that's been kind of done to death or whatnot. The Elgin one, of course, that's been done to death as well. But yeah, the Tessa one is that's one that could, if there's actual like video evidence of that, if there's actual, then like no, that's one where you might have to have a heart.
Well, even if there's not, I mean, even if these people combat her statement and say no, she absolutely said it. I mean, this one could absolutely turn out different. This one's still in progress, is what I'm saying.
Right.
But Impact doesn't care. They do their thing, and I think that they kind of get away with it because they're somewhat low profile. So we'll see the outcome, but and we'll see if they stay committed. Look, Taya Valkyrie hinted that she wanted to be first in line to face Tessa for the world title. So, that would indicate that maybe they're going to continue to go all in on this direction. And maybe that would be the merging of the titles that we talked about. I honestly don't think if you're going to do this, there's any point in having a Knockouts title. A lot of people disagreed with me when I said that last week. But what's the point? Why do you need a women's title if there's one title for everyone? I don't understand the point. Are you going to have a men's title? Are you going to have a world title, a women's title, and a men's title? No, you wouldn't do that, right? It's like you're not going to create a men's title.
Right. It's for all the women that can't fight men because they're not good enough for what, you know what I mean? Like there's the optics thing that's kind of weird. Yeah.
You just need to get rid of that. I think it's a mistake to keep that. If you're fully committed to the intergender. I'm not changing my stance on the intergender. If you like it, fine. Should they ban it? No. Am I offended by it? No. But I think it's stupid. I don't think women need to compete with men to justify the fact that women are good at this. It's silly. There's no other endeavor that look. Women don't have to fight men in MMA to prove their worth in MMA. They don't have to box other men. They don't have to, women don't have to play in the NBA to justify the fact that, that they're. So why in wrestling do we feel like the women need to wrestle with the men? Is it because it's worked? I really don't understand the connection there. It's if Tessa Blanchard is truly the biggest star in the company, then she can be the women's champion and the women's title can headline. What's wrong with that? Whoever's the biggest star headline, it's like if the women are a bigger deal than the men, then they should be on top and they should make the most money and they should headline and all of those things. I don't understand why for a lot of people, women wrestling the men is the stamp of approval for the women. I disagree with that, and I'm always going to disagree with that. And I don't care what people think of me disagreeing with that. And it's not the kind of wrestling that I personally enjoy. I rather watch men wrestle men and women wrestle women. It's the way I suspend my disbelief. Because to me, it's a simulated fight. And men don't fight women in any other sport, real sport. So why would I just it's all your approach to wrestling. If you approach wrestling, if your suspension of disbelief when it comes to wrestling comes from a sport perspective, you're not going to be real hot on intergender. If you come from the comic book fantasy world and that's why you enjoy wrestling, you might be more apt to enjoy it because it's just a fantasy story to you.
Right.
And that's fine. I'm not
we
arguing.
all come from it from different perspectives and whatnot, and it's fine.
Yeah. And for me, it's not for me. I see it. I prefer my wrestling to be a simulated fight. That's why the silliness drives me nuts. But if you think your wrestling is just a fantasy thing where, it's just superheroes doing battle and then that's fine. But that just means that if Impact won't be for me anymore. That's all. That's okay. I don't watch Chikara either for that reason and many other reasons. That's not even the primary reason. The primary reason with Chikara is not the intergender; it's all the other fucking.
They're having themselves some problems as of late too, but that's a different show.
Yeah, I don't blame the company for that though. I mean, that's just. I mean, what can you do? I mean, it's like, Rich, if you or I had some seedy secret, that's not our fault that we didn't know. I don't know what you do when we fucking hang this show up. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't blame Mike Quackenbush because Rory Gulak is a fucking freak.
No. I'm just saying that in general, a lot of wrestlers adjacent to them are having some issues, and
they've had a bad run. They're having a bad run.
It's not going well over there. Yeah,
it's not going well. Quack's had a few headaches. He's had a few headaches.
He's ready to take that PC job, I think, pretty quickly. So that's...
yeah. I mean, between Gulak and
Juan Francisco, yeah.
And then you see the other guy who's the dog killer. Did you see that one?
No, I don't even want to know what that is. I don't even know what that one was.
Whatever the fuck, the Castigator. I forget his first name. Blank the Castigator or whatever. He was working at a dog boutique or a dog groomer, and he accidentally killed a dog or something. So you got that fucking going on too, where he, but like it.
Glad I picked my dog off from the groomer today earlier, and not dropping him off tomorrow because I believe I'd cancel that appointment given that story. So all right.
But I believe allegedly it was due to some negligence, which is the bad part of it. Accidents are going to happen, but anyway, it's been a very bad run for Chikara. You're absolutely right.
That's all I wanted to say. But
yeah, the intergen, we'll see. Like we said last week, Impact is in the perfect position to test it out, though. And if it does help them grow their business, good on them. I think it's a good decision to try it, whether I'm a fan of it or not. So, and my stance remains the same as it did last week.
All right, let's go over some of the other parts of the show. I don't have a ton of takes on a lot of the rest of Impact Hard to Kill because I thought the show kind of stunk. I thought it was far and away the worst Impact pay-per-view of the Callis era. There's some stuff that I thought was okay, but there was a lot of shit on this show, man. There was some real big lump of shit in the show. But let's we'll start off at the top here. Ken Shamrock defeating...
I just coughed in the air.
That's fine. It's all right. It's a good segment to do that.
I thought it was muted. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good. Ken Shamrock versus Madman Fulton. 9 minutes. Ken Shamrock gets the win. I thought this was pretty bad. I guess I didn't hate that Ken Shamrock got the win, but there was the weird Madman Fulton shoulder separation thing, and them just kind of standing and looking at each other for what felt like 2 minutes until Shamrock eventually just beat him. But this I did not think was very good.
Yeah, they did the shoulder finish with the separated shoulder, which did you buy that as a shoot?
Not at all.
When you were watching? Neither did I. And the entire press row thought that was a shoot. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? I mean, Fulton created a sling with his gear, like it was clearly part.
Right.
And then
that's not how a real separated. Bro, if he actually separates his shoulder, A, you would know, or B, you wouldn't know because most guys know how to put it back in. Or if they don't know how to put it back in, they're gonna freak out and it's gonna be a major. Like guys that have separated their shoulders multiple times or whatever, pop that shit back in and you barely even know. Or they have a referee come over and do it. Or if they've never done it before, it's a much bigger deal than guy makes sling out of ring gear. He's not going to do that. It's pretty wild.
Oh, and then it was the finish. Then the finish was him cranking an armbar.
Right, because that's going to be the shoot. Man, Fulton. Hey, my shoulder got separated, so Ken Shamrock, professional fighter, former professional fighter, why don't you rear back on this thing and pull it back as far as humanly possible? That'd be great. So,
yeah, I mean, Ken Shamrock's in tremendous shape. And, he said that he wants to continue doing this. So, it's whatever. I think Fulton has some potential. He's a big guy and a decent athlete. I was surprised that WWE gave up on him. But, I don't know. I mean, I saw some people thought it was awful. I can understand. Believe me, I think it sounds like you thought it was awful.
Yeah, I don't know if I thought it was awful. I just didn't think it was good. there's awful on the show. We'll talk about awful. This wasn't awful. This was just not good.
It was just a story that I think didn't necessarily land with everybody, and it was kind of confusing for people. And it's fucking Ken Shamrock, and he's pushing 60. What do you want?
Yeah, he did a suicide dive. I can't complain too much. So
yeah, I mean, there was a lot to like here too. I mean, I'm kind of into this Shamrock thing. He was very personable in with his little presser deal. I was very impressed, but he's got a lot of experience doing that kind of thing, especially, work in the media too. So
yeah, for sure.
His was the most interesting because it
was the longest. The longest of the videos you sent me was Ken Shamrock. So that's it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing with the videos for the patrons I cut a lot of it for a lot of the people. I left what I thought would be interesting to our listeners. Because a lot of it was just junk, kayfabe stuff. You know what I mean? So I really tried my hardest to get the most interesting bits from each person. So, and you're right, I did leave a lot of the Shamrock stuff. So I think I let him go like 2 minutes worth, where some of the others I gave you maybe 20 seconds, because the rest of it was just stuff that I don't think anybody that listens to this show would care about. But anyway.
We had Ace Austin versus Trey Miguel, because Trey. I forgot how much the Rascals lean into like these crazy kids, they smoke weed and play video games. But
yeah,
I forgot that his video is literally like a bong. Like his theme music is a bong being lit up, and I'm like, oh my god, it's probably Don Callis. I can just imagine Don Callis being like, they're kids, they skateboard, they play video games, they smoke weed. I love this idea. But Ace also wants to fuck Trey's mom, and he won the match, so I guess he can fuck Trey's mom or something. Yeah, whatever. It wasn't very X-Division-y. It wasn't very X-Division-y. It was fine, but yeah, I did not love this match either.
Correct. I mean, it was well worked, but, I want an X-Division match. I want guys doing stupid shit and being reckless with their bodies and flipping all over the place. That's what I want out of an X-Division match. But, they worked a safe match, and it's just the story of Ace Austin trying to fuck Trey's mom is really what it was all built around. And he was in full work mode for the little presser, as you saw. So, it was fine. I mean, it wasn't a bad match, but it wasn't what I was expecting or wanting. But it wasn't a bad little match. It was okay.
I wonder how old Trey Miguel's mom is, because she's like, she looks like she's not that far off from like, because he's pretty young too. I'm trying to remember how old Trey Miguel is. Because I'm like, Trey's mom's pretty hot. And I'm like, well, she's like not that far off. He's 25, so yeah, she's like,
She's 45.
That's what I mean. So yeah, okay, yeah. Hey.
Is that really his mom? I don't even know.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a shoot or not, but hey.
It could be his mom. I don't know. I could totally see Don Callis like meeting his mom.
Yeah, I'd be like, whoa, Trey, we need to get your mom in here. Would your mom be okay with like a storyline where Ace Austin wants to have sex with her?
Like,
can I say no? I would love to say no, but because I feel like I would say no, but I guess these are pro wrestlers, so who knows?
I mean, who fucked LeBron's mom?
Delonte West was the rumor.
Yeah, Delonte West fucked LeBron's mom, so it's kind of playing off that, right?
I guess that's what they're going for. Oh,
I don't know.
God. All right, let's move on to and move past the Impact Knockouts Championship. Taya Valkyrie wins, defeats Jordan Grace and ODB. This was a nothing match, man. I thought this stunk.
This was junk.
What was this? What was this? This was so bad.
Yeah, it's junk. Wasn't good. I didn't see all of it, to be fair, because I was in the back.
You Joe, I promise you missed nothing.
Well, what happened was, with the Ken Shamrock presser, they were doing it during the entrances to the next match. It was hard to hear with the music. So for the rest of them, they didn't send the wrestlers to the presser area until the entrances were done, which meant that you missed like the first 5 minutes of the. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So
right.
we missed. You were missed the first 5 minutes of the. Luckily, none of the matches were any good. That came up next, but yeah. So I didn't see all of this, but what I saw was atrocious. ODB is not good.
No, what are they
not
doing?
Good at all.
Tell her enough. Like
I think with the food truck burning down.
Well, then send her some fucking money for the food truck. I don't have a wrestle. You know what I mean? Grab $20,000 and send her some fucking money and buy her a food truck. But I don't have to see her in the ring.
I hear you. NWA's using her too. I hear you though. But she's not good. She
was barely good 20 years ago. She, it was a fun gimmick. It was a fun gimmick, I guess, for like the first 4 times you see it, and then you're like, all right, she grabs her boobs, cool, all right, let's move on. Like, and we're still doing it, and yeah, and she's even worse than she was then. So
she's charismatic, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, look. Stop yelling at me. I agree.
I know. Tell me why you love ODB so much, Joe.
But I mean, look, I don't think Taya. Listen, I am the world's foremost Taya Valkyrie hater. I mean, not personally. I mean, I'm sure she's a lovely lady, but I just don't think she's very good, and I never have. So yeah, that element too. Plus, it's a 3-way. Plus, they did the shitty fucking heel steals the pin fucking finish. So there was nothing good about this. It was an awful match. You're right.
Well, speaking of awful, the awful continued here with Brian Cage versus Rob Van Dam ended in a no contest. The what we would find out is the blow off for Brian Cage, the write off of Brian Cage. He comes out. We'll talk about Rob Van Dam here in a sec. I wonder how much of this you saw. But anyway, I'll talk about the match itself before I talk about old RVD and Katie Forbes. But Brian Cage comes out. Katie Forbes' girlfriend, Rob Van Dam's girlfriend's girlfriend, distracts Brian Cage. RVD beats him up, kind of hits him with a chair lightly, beats him up a little bit more, and then they just end it in no contest. While Daga comes out and says, "Hey, stop beating up Brian Cage." And then we end up going to our next match, is Rob Van Dam versus Daga, and Rob Van Dam defeats Daga. But I got to talk about this first and foremost. How much of this Rob Van Dam Katie Forbes entrance did you see, or were you an oppressor at that point?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't see any entrances for matches that followed someone doing oppressor, and I didn't see like the first 5 minutes of any of those matches either. So I didn't see the Rob Van Dam entrance, not a second of it.
This Katie Forbes Rob Van Dam thing is so gross. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Oh yeah, but see, that's the point, though. I mean,
it goes a little bit beyond that, though. It's like legitimately like disgusting.
Yeah. Well, he's supposed to be this dad-aged guy who is divorced, and
he's your uncle. He's your uncle that like used to come to the holiday parties with, you know, Aunt Linda or whatever, and then one year Aunt Linda's gone. And what happened to Aunt Linda? We're getting separated. And then the next party, he's got some woman that he met at a bar, and they're just the tongues are down each other's throats the entire night. And you're like, Uncle Frank, like, what are you doing, man? Like, it's so weird. Like, and then they're gonna break. You know, they're breaking up too. Like, this is not gonna last. Like, they're hot. They're so hot into each other, and they cannot wait to just bone. They like the entire party, they're just making out and touching each other, and you know that they're fucking in the car before they even drive home or whatever. But then you know that the next party it's gonna be like, hey, what happened to like you know, then like fucking broads as he, you know, opens up a can of beer or whatever, and then the cycle continues until, you know, he eventually just drinks himself to death or whatever. That's kind of what the Rob Van Dam thing is feeling like.
Jeez. Yeah, you're like, Uncle Rob, what happened to Candy?
What happened to Alexis?
Yeah, I haven't seen Candy in a while. It's always a name like that, too. You know, the name always matches the gimmick, you know? And, but, you know, I kind of like it. I like the gimmick.
I knew you would like it. It's gross as fuck. It's so weird.
Here's the thing. Rob Van Dam, he stinks now. He doesn't try. It's like, this is what he is. You know, it's like, he was boring in Impact before all of this because he can't go anymore. Or I mean, if he can, he doesn't attempt to go. So it's like, at least he has some kind of character. At least he has some kind of reason to be interested. You can't take your eyes off it. You know, and
I could.
And his girlfriend,
I definitely could.
And his girlfriend has a girlfriend. So then he's like making out with both of them. It's just it's a sleazy Don Callis style gimmick, and it got them kicked off.
Here's the thing. It did get them kicked off Twitch. To me though, it feels like XPW level shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every former ECW thing had like I remember these names from the past. I don't know if you remember these names. There was like April Hunter. Do you remember her name?
Of course, yes.
From back in the day, like she was in these companies and she would just like get her top ripped off or whatever, and she would just be like making out with dudes or whatever, and it was just like, oh, look at this sex appeal. It was just like this weird thing that kind of happened outside of ECW where they like took the cat fight angles of Francine and Dawn Marie and all that sort of stuff, and then ramped it up to 10, and it was just like, here's just a hot woman with no clothes doing stuff, and it's like, all right, like whatever, but this it's just it feels. It's like too raunchy. You know what I mean? Like I feel weird. I feel like a prude, but it's kind of like, I don't know. It's just too much. It's like, what are you doing here? I don't know. I agree,
gross. But that's the point.
I know. It's just
it's supposed to be gross. Katie Forbes is just with her fake lips and her fake ass and her fake tits, and
I think
it's
she's got fake abs now too. Because those abs just appeared out of one day, and they're like they're like nobody has abs that look like that. They are like perfectly aligned and like perfectly straight. They have to be fake too.
And she's not exactly the pinnacle of fitness. I mean,
that's what I mean. She's got a great ass and great abs, even though like, the rest of her body is like, you know, it's fine, but she's not exactly like, you know.
She's not someone who is, I mean, she's not in bad shape. She's not someone who's hitting the gym, 4 hours a day. She's not a fitness model, but somehow she has abs. You're right. It's weird. Everything about it's weird.
She's so weird. I hate it.
She is weird. It's bizarre. But I'm telling you, like, he started dating her and probably brought her to a show, and Callis was like, yo, she needs to be on TV because she's absurd. That woman is out of control, and you are going to be wild fucking divorced uncle. And she has a girlfriend too, and we're doing this and we're leaning in, and it's going to be gross and it's going to be great. And I think that's the point. What's the best is after the show, he was taking $20 mark picks with the two of them in the ring. This is a major league company, Rich. Indies do this kind of thing. The guy was like, after the
was
Tessa
he pocketing these? Was he throwing them in his fanny pack, or was this going to like? Okay, so it wasn't an Impact guy that was like running this. It was Rob Van Dam throwing a 20 into his fanny pack.
Listen to me. After the Tessa Blanchard thing on the stage with the wrestlers, right?
I love the juxtaposition of a woman achieves the world championship. All right, get out of the ring. All right, here's me and my fake bootied girlfriend and his girlfriend. We're gonna pay $20 so you can take a picture with these, grotesque people. It's just...
Listen, after that ends, the music stops, the house lights come on, which is everyone's signal to leave, right? The whole thing, never leave a concert until the house lights come on. There's going to be an encore, right? The house lights come on, right? And then the Impact ring announcer, he goes, "Don't forget, fans, don't leave quite yet. Rob Van Dam and Katie Forbes and Katie Forbes' girlfriend Jennifer will be taking pictures for just $20 inside the ring." Totally something you'd see in an indie. So then what you had were and Rich, he made a fucking killing.
What a worker. I love it. I love that part. Yeah, I do love that.
There were fans lined up around the whole fucking floor to the door, waiting in line to take and handing him a $20 bill. And this was all happening after a major league pay. Could you imagine a WWE pay-per-view? Don't forget, fans, Dolph Ziggler will be taking pictures in the ring for $20. It's bizarre. It's just absurd. But that's Rob Van Dam.
What would probably happen was RVD said, "Hey man, I'm going to go outside of the ring after the show and offer pictures." And they said, "Rob, we don't really do that." And he goes, "Nah, I'm going to do it." And they were like, "All right, fine, whatever." Because you're not going to tell Rob Van Dam no, you know? Like, I'm sure that wasn't a planned thing. I'm sure RVD just said, "Hey, can I go out in the ring and take pictures afterwards?" Or said, "I'm going to do this, so just tell people I'm going to do it because I'm Rob Van Dam and I call the shots." So, hey.
He blew off the post-match presser. You knew he wasn't going to do that.
Oh, no.
And he's doing this, and he's taking pictures, and like Forbes is like rubbing on the men's chests who were taking the picture. Like it was extra sleazy too. Like they were like making out in some of the pictures, or she was like, like really being suggestive with the person she was taking the picture with, and they were doing $20 a pop. Listen, the guy is making presumably a salary here, and he's doing this in the post. It's just he's just living the gimmick to the fullest. So I don't know, man. I'm not put off by it like you are. I don't know. I respect it.
So I think it's gross. Okay. So I think it's gross, but if I was Rob Van Dam, I would absolutely be down with that. Getting paid to make out with my girlfriend and my girlfriend's girlfriend, that's not a bad gig.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely fucking both of them after the show too. Like,
right. So he's doing it. He's doing it all right. Yeah, that's.
I've turned you around on it a little.
Well, no, I think it's still gross, but I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to be. I don't want to watch my weird uncle make out with Candy at the Christmas party. But I wouldn't mind being Uncle Frank making out with Candy at the Christmas. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's fine.
Let me be clear. I'm not turned on by any of it.
Okay.
Let's
all right.
not get it twisted.
All right.
It's not like, I'm going home and fapping off to fucking Katie Forbes. That's not happening. It's totally gross. I agree with you, but I respect it.
Okay, so we're actually on the same page then. So that's good. We've come to a compromise there. So that's pretty good. Well, anyway, Rev and Dam and Daga, that was nothing. Do we need to talk about that? Because
no, it seemed like a write-off for Brian Cage, because then the story came out that he signed with AEW, but then his wife is denying that he signed with AEW. But we've seen that game played with wrestlers before, where, and it'll probably in a couple days we'll find out that he is signing with AEW. So who knows? But it felt like a write-off for Brian Cage. So it seems like they're preparing for him to be gone. But and Daga is Daga. He's a guy. He's a jag.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's call him Jagga.
Chaka. He was definitely just a guy here as well. I enjoyed Rob Van Dam thinking he was just a fan, which might be a shoot as well. Might have legitimately been a shoot where Rob Van Dam watched it. Daga probably came up to him and went, "Hey, big fan." He goes, "Oh, thanks, man. Cool, appreciate it, dude." Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, Daga. Yeah, what's up, man? Later in the show.
This wheezy Rob Van Dam impression.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway, Eddie Edwards, Michael Elgin. This was great.
Yeah, I mean, this was to me, the best worked match on the show.
Oh, not even close.
By a mile.
Yeah, not even fucking close.
This was, and you know what's funny about this is if these two guys wrestled in 2011, it would have been go, 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 nobody sell anything, super athletic, fucking dumb jock wrestling, right? That's what this would have been in it would have been that 2 years ago. Right. But now these guys are seasoned veterans. And really, this has been the case with Elgin everywhere over the last few months. And it's like these guys just worked. They were such professionals. And they pulled the strings on that crowd. It was just classic, great, house show style pro wrestling. And when Eddie Edwards, after taking that beating for all of that time, finally hit that sit-out powerbomb, it was the biggest pop all night until Tessa won the title. All because of the way that they brilliantly worked that match. And the work was solid as fuck. It was snug. It looked believable. My God, I don't have enough praise for the performance that these two guys put in. And it's not like it was a 4.5-star match. It was just great pro wrestling.
Yeah, it was just a good classic pro wrestling match. It's one of these weird ones that it's not going to show up on a match of the year polls. It's not, like you said, it's not 4.5 stars. It's not a match that I'm going to say, oh my God, by the end of the, but it's a match that everybody should check out because it's just that's, this is why we love pro wrestling is a match like this. Just a well-told story, a nice, simple story, and a guy gets a definitive win over another guy. And that's all you and I ever ask for. Two guys just trying to prove who's the better man, and one guy beats him. And it's great. It's the simplicity of it is what makes it so great. Yeah.
And I never thought I would say the following sentence, but Mike Elgin's pacing in this match, he was deliberate, but not boring. You know what I mean? It's one thing, it's so hard for wrestlers because when they're deliberate, it's hard for them not to be like Randy Orton. My God, he'll put you to sleep, right? But it's this was Elgin working a deliberate pace and putting a beat down on Edwards, but doing it in a compelling way that was never boring and mixing in little high spots at just the right time, mixing in the little hope spots at just the right time. Those screaming little girls who were behind Eddie Edwards, which people were telling me was annoying on the TV broadcast, but live, they got those little girls got the crowd in. They helped get the crowd into the match because everybody was rooting for Edwards harder because they wanted those little girls to be happy. Because those little girls who didn't make a peep all night until that match came up to the barrier and they loved Eddie Edwards for whatever reason. They must be watching Access every week and just loving their Eddie. I don't know. It's inconceivable to me, but they were the world's biggest Eddie Edwards fans. And then Elgin and Edwards were smart enough to play to those little girls. And Elgin was haunting them, and it was great. It was just classic pro wrestling, and Elgin was so good here, And it's again, a couple years ago, and definitely 7-8 years ago, these guys would have went out there and just had a high tempo, go, 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 lots of high spots, and we probably would have thrown 4 stars at
we would have loved it. Yeah, they would have done a clothesline spot where Elgin would have clotheslined Edwards would get up and clothesline Elgin. They'd both fall down. They'd get up, double clothesline to each other. I could see the match I'm closing my eyes right now and seeing it in Hammerstein Ballroom or whatever. These two dudes doing the exact match I can imagine them doing it. But yeah. 1
count kick outs and no selling and Japanese style fighting spirit. And, but it's these guys, we talk about it all the time, they're maturing as workers, and this wasn't the right spot to have that kind of match. It's a story match, a heel and a face, classic heel versus face, with the story behind it with the dopey trophy. And they had that crowd in their hands like putty. And to me, without question, it was by far easily the best worked. They were the 2 best wrestlers on this show to me, because of the way they brilliantly worked this match. And again, it's only a match that I'd go maybe 3.25, 3.5 on, but that's, again, another example of why sometimes I hate stars, because you couldn't work this match any better. I loved it.
All right, and then we had a match I did not love very much, Moose and Rhino. Was this any better live than it was on TV? Because it was bad.
No, I mean, I missed a lot of it. Spent a lot of time with Eddie Edwards in the back. But what I saw was pretty atrocious, with a lot of shortcuts with the chairs and the tables. Moose, who did, head to the hospital legit after the match. So if you want to put a little asterisk on it for that, you can go ahead and do that. Rhino is what he is at this point. He does have a really weird crowd connection, though, Rhino. You know who got odd reactions on this show? Rhino in this match, and TJP in a match taped for Impact got a tremendous pop. And it's like, it just goes to show, I mean, is it because these guys were in WWE in the last year and a half? I mean, does that really still matter in the current world? I mean, maybe it does. Because I can't think of any other reason why those two guys, I mean, it's not like Rhino got a thunderous pop, but his crowd he has a real good crowd connection. And TJP got a legitimate pop coming out, at least for that portion of the card. I just thought that was notable. But more so than anybody else they had a 4-way tag team match with a bunch of, the Rascals and my boy Mahabali Shira, and guys like that, Daga. But anyway, yeah, this wasn't any good, but
And then, unfortunately, our semi-main event was altered dramatically because Rich Swann turned his ankle or sprained his ankle. I forget what the exact injury they were saying the night prior in San Antonio. So he was not able to wrestle in this match. And so instead of doing a replacement, they did a handicap match. So it was the North, Ethan Page and Josh Alexander retaining their Impact Tag Team titles against Willie Mack in a handicap match. And I think that severely hurt this because this was a match I was really, really looking forward to. And I just couldn't get down with this handicap match. I think they did the best they could given the circumstances. But to me, it just didn't work.
See, I thought it was really good. I liked it. They did that. I don't know what that was, but when Willie Mack gave Josh Alexander that, I don't know, Canadian Destroyer off of Ethan Page's shoulders or what. I mean, holy shit. I thought Alexander was dead. But I thought Mack worked his ass off, and I thought he was great in the match. And I really think, like you said, they made the best of a horrible situation. And I thought they ended up having a pretty good match. I thought this was probably the third best match on the show for me. Second or third best match on the show. So I will differ with you there. I enjoyed this match.
All right, and that is Impact Wrestling Hard to Kill. We are right up against the clock, Joe. I think we might have to do an overrun. Are you fine with that?
You are the timekeeper. So
I am the timekeeper. Yeah, we got 10 minutes to go, and we have Takeover Blackpool. We got the Evolve game to play, and we want to talk about Noah real quick. So I think we need to go to an overrun. VoiceOfWrestling.com/Patreon. Patreon.com/VoiceOfWrestling is how you can listen to that. If you want to listen to NXT UK Takeover review, our Evolve game that we're going to play, and then a recap of the Pro Wrestling Noah stuff from 1-4 and 1-5, because, yeah, we are right up against the clock, and there's no way we're going to get those three topics done in just 10 minutes. So, yeah, go to VoiceOfWrestling.com/Patreon. The $2 tier will get you the overrun for sure, but $5 tier you're in, so you get obviously the overrun and everything else we do. But yeah, we are up against the clock, and yeah, that's we're gonna have to bounce over to the overrun. So anyway, we will see you guys. We'll talk to you guys, I should say, on the overrun. But that's it for us this week. For Joe Lanza, I'm Rich Craich. We'll talk to you guys next time.